we're going to review the feedback from the comms team. You all got that. And it's feedback, so it's there for you all to consider, accept, reject, revise. So it's that's what it is for us. We'll review the feedback on the legislative outreach section and then the communications section. And then we'll go through the entire charter, and I will be asking, remember I started asking if there were tentative agreements on sections and then I gave up. I'll do that again, but I'll do that for real this time when we go through the whole charter. And if we make changes to the legislative branch and executive outreach or the comms branch, what I'm going to try and do is make those changes, print them out so you have them, and we'll go over those again as we go through the entire document. Is that okay? Everyone know where we're going?
Yes.
Okay. So let's look at the legislative and executive outreach branch. What the feedback is, what I saw is it's a lot of comments, and there are a couple of word suggestions or changes. So let's look at legislative and executive branch outreach. It may be easier to see on computers because you can make it bigger, but the first one is on number 4. Commission-supported positions are limited to the endorsement of legislative objectives, not specific legislation. And the suggestion,
Which one?
the legislative one.
Oh, okay, okay. So it's, yours is blue, but mine is. Oh, okay, yep. Sorry,
Okay.
just because your colors are different.
That's okay. So the suggestion is to change the word legislative to policy, and the comment gives the rationale for that. It says the bullet also applies to executive branch outreach. The broader language reduces the risk that we appear to undermine executive branch activities. So open the floor for discussion about that proposed change from legislative to policy.
I thought we always called it executive and legislative outreach, like.
That's the name of it. So it says here, commission-supported positions are limited to the endorsement of legislative objectives.
Why don't we just add executive in there and leave legislative in too?
I agree.
Sorry, I want to make sure I'm where everyone is.
So we're on the document that's legislative and executive branch outreach has a lot of balloons on the right. Do you have that?
I have it.
Okay.
So number
We're
4,
looking at number 4, where it's our draft said legislative. The comms team recommended policy, and Commissioner Roy is suggesting to just say
Back
legislative,
to the name of the section.
legislative and executive objectives. Or executive branch.
Which is the name of the
objectives.
section we're under.
I mean, I understand the reason for the change, because we don't make legislative decisions, we make policy decisions and endorsements.
That's true.
So are you suggesting, Commissioner Concepcion, that policy is a better word there?
The reason why I think that's a good suggestion is that was one reason. The other reason is because we want to make sure we're steering clear of endorsing any bills. And I know, there are bills that will align with our policy positions, but when this was developed, it was really the intention was to make sure that we're not falling behind a single piece or pieces of legislation. So I do agree with it.
So you suggest going to policy? Okay, so we have 2 proposals on the table. One is to have legislative and executive.
Commission supported positions are limited to the endorsement of policy objectives. But
Other thoughts?
I tend to like the policy objective language only because I've been thinking, and I certainly could foresee us doing some federal outreach, and I don't know if legislative and executive branch, we're thinking too cornered in terms of just state government activity.
Commissioner Roy, would you be okay with
no, that's a
policy
good
for
point.
that rationale?
That's a good point.
I think it makes sense, look at the policy, makes sense.
Chair,
I think that's fine.
policy?
Yeah, so I don't mind policy. I don't think I understand the comment, but that's already a different conversation. I don't, the broader language reduces the risk that we appear to undermining executive branch activities.
Because it was referring only to legislative and not executive branch, I think was his, I think that was how I understood the comment. In any case, anyone think policy is not okay? Everyone okay with making that change to policy? Commissioner Roy, that's okay? Yeah, okay. All right,
Just for an added note, the executive branch also does legislative. Like the word does not mean just the legislature. But nevertheless, policy is looking for it.
okay, great. The next one is on number 5, is the addition at the end of that sentence to add with relevant departments. And the rationale is this work requires deep coordination with other departments such as traditional communications and finance and administration. So open the floor for discussion about adding the phrase with relevant departments.
I'm sorry, who's the policy team? Here.
That's the official name of government, it's the Government Policy and Affairs Department.
It is.
That's what they said in
The title, government, Matt's policy team, Matt's government affairs and policy.
Anyone have an opinion about adding with relevant departments?
See, I think that 5 is sufficient. I think that 6 is overreach.
Okay, let's wait for 6, but on 5, so you're
Yeah.
suggesting not to add.
I just, this is also where this is in the exercise of how we do it. And I am not comfortable with providing that level of control on the communications of the commissioners.
So 5?
Yeah, yeah. Just in general.
With 5, you're saying you're with the relevant.
Work with the
department.
commissioners to coordinate all necessary for identifying legislative outreach. I think that that's fine. I mean, again, relevant departments, formal outreach plan with relevant departments. I mean, so who determines what's relevant? I don't know who determines. And again, this is what I keep saying is it's in the execution.
Nervous.
It does make me nervous. And especially as I have seen how this has been happening recently, I'm not comfortable with it.
Any other thoughts?
I don't know if that additional language is necessary because in reality, our government affairs team is already working and developing our outreach plan within coordination with other departments. So it's not commissioners who are sort of figuring out which departments need to be engaged or incorporated in the conversation. It's sort of a part of the government affairs and policy team's job position. So I just, and I'm open if there's any pushback or, other opinions here, but I don't see the
Wait, say
necessity
that
for it.
again, what was your rationale?
Well, because think about how we actually do this. The government affairs and policy team, when they're developing an outreach strategy, they gather information from other departments, from other teams. So for commissioners to coordinate or to do an outreach plan, we're really just going with Matt and the team, and they're doing that other legwork within their position as the executive, as the government affairs and policy team. So what I'm
So
saying
it's like
is,
not necessary,
I don't think it's necessary.
it's assumed.
It's gotta happen organically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's that's a part of their job and department.
Okay, so it sounds like everyone agrees not to add that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna strike that.
Okay. And none of this is in our collective document, it's
Mhm.
just, it's just the feedback, and
Yeah.
I'll add in what you think needs to. be edited. Okay, so number 6 is it's a new sentence. Upon planning outreach or engagement with government officials, commissioners and the executive director will proactively notify the Government Affairs and Policy Department in a timely manner so that staff may assist in managing engagement. And the comment is traditionally a number of engagements go unreported or reported in a manner that does not follow for executive staff support, prioritization, and planning. This will be critical for success. Chair, you had a comment already on number 6.
The question that I have, and I guess I just want to be frank with everybody, okay? I've been looking at a lot of this stuff and I've been getting a lot of feedback. I don't know if you've been fielding phone calls from legislators or other government officials or frankly the press about the balance of power here and how we manage this stuff. And I actually had, and Sean, I haven't alerted you to this, but I'm having some serious reservations about where we're going and what we're doing to the power of the chair. And, I have only read 30 times in the last week, the chair shall have and exercise supervision and control over all affairs of the commission. The chair will divide the work of the commissioners, and the chair can designate employees to accomplish the goals of the commission. I have personally experienced, since I've come, one of the things I said to Susan, and I guess I just need to say it here today, and so I'm a little bit kind of checked out on some of this stuff because I am unsure that I want to sign off on this at all at this point in time.
But this is already in place.
Yes, I do. I'm just
So this
telling you,
isn't,
what I'm telling you in general, I'm just saying in general, what my feelings are right now, and that the past month has impacted my thinking about this. And I am concerned that we are delegating too much authority to our government affairs team, too much authority to our comms team, too much authority to, our direct reports. When we were dividing the working groups on the regulations, I was not consulted. And again, Sean, this is not a criticism of you. I think that there's been a power vacuum and I think you've appropriately stepped into it. But you and I have had a conversation in the past week that I basically was delegated to, and can I ask you not to take notes of what I'm saying right now? Because I'm not comfortable with it.
Yeah, no.
Okay. But
This is being recorded, just so you know.
No, I understand. And this will all, become public soon enough. But Sean and I need to establish a working relationship that respects, and you can pull it out. I had it printed for everybody. But I have been given significant blowback with people saying, you run the commission. The statute says you run the commission. When I look at that statute, I see it. When I read the language there, it is clear that the chair, that there is not a respect or understanding of what the statute says. And in the past couple of weeks, in addition to, the document breach, which happened, the craziness which happened, with the Ways and Means testimony. Nerys, you were not even informed, right? We've had the policy of the chair and the executive director testifying in front of Ways and Means. We literally have written that into this language, and we had a call. The script was never given to me, never given to Sean, never given to Commissioner Camargo, and she was surprised that she was put in to testify. So this is sort of the ongoing insubordination that I see. I have seen insubordination towards Sean in the past week. There was a letter sent out to all employees saying a new SOP, we're going to pay for your parking. That hasn't been budgeted. They did not consult Sean before they put that out. I don't necessarily disagree with it, but I think that I just see constant instances of insubordination, whether it's you should staff the chair on her first day at work? And the answer is no. Whether it's we need to have a back to work policy and the policy is once a quarter. I mean, you know, I pulled this out. I read this yesterday. You know, this, the distant bosses in the ranks of the MBTA, we spend $750,000 on rent. And coming back once a quarter, that will be an article in the paper. So as I've looked at some of this commentary, this continues to bother me that I'm not doing my job based on the statute, that I'm not fulfilling it. Bruce, you and I met with Kathy Judd-Stein, and the Gaming Commission had a similar issue where they had ceded significant power to the staff. And the executive director, or the chair there, literally spent $20,000 of her own personal funds in legal fees to right the balance of power. But in my experience, both as the chair of the Lottery Commission and chair of the Pension Fund Board, that either at the lottery, it's pretty explicit in the legislation, how much power the chair has. At the pension fund, it's a little bit less well-defined, but it's based on trust, it's based on respect, it's based on the fact that as the chair of the Pension Fund Board, I owned the failure of the pension fund, with Enron. I mean, when I ran for governor, my other husband was Enron Emmett, and I was blamed for that. Now, the fact is, I was just one of 5 votes, but there was a relationship and a deference and a trust. And that's what I think is missing here, is we can put in all this language that we want, but ultimately, I am very concerned, just as the Boston Globe has now said in 2 different editorials, the tail is wagging the dog. And one of the things that I've been very pleased with is I've been trying to work more closely with Sean to give him some of my feedback. But I want to protect him because I think that he has been undermined by his staff. When he puts in place a search process and a direct report of his says to another direct report, you have to recuse yourself from this search because you're biased, that undermines Sean. So I just wanted to say today, respectfully, that this document, I do not want to undermine the statute that I see plainly gives the chair significant authority and responsibility to fix this place. And I'm telling you, the legislature's mad. We have an honoree, we have a spokesperson, we have people, but the fact is, it's been 8 months since I've been here, and the comms team, the first time in 8 months, the comms team put my name in a quote for 420. I have never had the comms team support anything that I do. And I'm not one, because I've said I can do it myself. But the devil is in the details. If we emasculate our role as people involved in governance, what you will have is there will be, I believe, more insubordination towards Sean, make it hard for him to do his job. And so I've just been, and I'm a little bit emotional about this because I know so much work has gone into it. But I will tell you, the insubordination of the testimony in front of Ways and Means, that never should have happened without talking to Sean or without talking to me. And frankly, talking to you, you were surprised. So I think that I just wanted to say in general, I'd like to work through this document. I'm happy to sort of nuance the words, but I am reluctant to sign off on this when I see that it clearly flies in the face of what the legislature and the people of the Commonwealth wanted us to do. And I'm going to be held accountable and you're going to be held accountable. So when you have 125,000, I think Sean has asked my advice and I think I've told him what I think, but I don't know how I, as chair of this commission, can do my job if I can have staff people going, screw you, I don't have to do what you say. Screw you, I don't have to staff. Screw you, we're not gonna pick up lunch for you. And I know it's a small thing, but I'm telling you, it's that kind of tiny insubordination. We are here in an all-day meeting, and for people to tell us, we're not gonna pick up your lunch, when it's like, okay, so we're gonna take an hour to go out and get it? Doesn't make any sense. So what I am putting together, and I've been thinking about this deeply over the past weekend, what I would like to do, and this is in the implementation, like to finish this document, get everyone's input, but I will be asking the staff, I'm going to be putting in place certain things. A back to work policy, training for licensees, because I will tell you, if you talk to licensees, when there's a question, do you know what they tell them? Call your lawyer. They tell them, I'm not your advisor. So I think I want to, and I would like to engage all of you in this, because when I read this, you know, again, that any such matter may be heard, examined, and investigated by an employee of the commission designated and assigned by the chair. I have the ability to designate and assign employees with the concurrence of one other commissioner. And we have so much work to do that I don't want to give that up. And I don't want to give up Sean. But I think Sean will recognize that his strength in policy, his strength in regulation, but I think Sean will acknowledge that this place has grown up so fast remotely over the past 3 years where we don't have a great culture. And when people ignore Sean, and they do it all the time, as one person on the staff said to me as I was talking to them, he goes, well, you're already unpopular, so you might as well get something for it. I don't mind being unpopular. I don't
laugh at that.
No, but it's true. I mean, and I am unpopular. I'm unpopular when I get yelled at for talking
We all
about.
are, don't worry.
No, I know.
I think I said that on the stage.
What did you say?
I said that I know people don't like me.
So
Yeah.
so I'll get off my soapbox, but I have been in between hockey and basketball and baseball. I have been thinking about this a great deal. I'd like to write a document, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be putting some work in place I'm going to ask the direct reports. There will be things that I expect of them that I don't think they're living up to right now. And I think that if I sign off on this document, I'm allowing further insubordination of Sean. I'm already, finding that people are insubordinate towards me and frankly insubordinate towards other commissioners. I just needed to make that speech because I don't want to be wasting anybody's time. But I'll tell you, the Globe has now written 2 articles about us saying the tail is wagging the dog. And this is the damn tail as I see it. So I apologize. But Kim, do you want to?
No, I was just gonna say quickly, and thank you for sharing, all of that with us. Honestly, I think all of us have worked in government. I've never seen a government agency function and operate like this, like working in the AG's office. When the AG said something, did staff respond?
Or the DA's office.
The DA's office, respond, or the AG's office? The sheriff's office, the sheriff says, the staff responds, right? Or the superintendent, you have the sheriff and the superintendent. When they say something.
Without question.
Without question. So district attorney, Joe Early, or district attorney, they say something, the staff, or their next in command, the staff responds. I mean, in gaming, I don't know what it was like when you were there, but you worked in other government agencies, when the head of the agency says something, or the next in line says something, and I've never seen a place like this where there's always pushback on everything and they don't, I've never seen it. This is the first, I've never seen anything like this. So this is not what you see in other government agencies. So I just want to say, it's dysfunctional. It really is. Because when everything push back on everything, it's just, I don't understand it.
But this is why I think we need to be having more meetings. I mean, the Gaming Commission right now, with all of their craziness, we're having craziness. We meet once a month. And now we're going to twice a month. And
With pushback.
with pushback.
on everything.
And so I think that we need to be developing a more collegial. When I was chair of the pension fund, okay, and I came in and, what's his name from the retirees, Ralph White, refused to let them hire a new executive director before the chair came in. I had no unique power. I was one vote in the group, but there was deference paid to the chair. Appropriately so, because again, I was the one who was held accountable for the ups and downs of the pension fund, even though I can't control the stock market, but I was. And when my successor came in, he went out and he hired a new executive director without talking to any of the people on board. They snapped that back pretty quickly. Bob Rousseau, the head of the teachers union and who was who was the advisor there, he went, not so fast, Mr. Chairman. And so that showed, one, that the board members there exercise their power and the commissioners here should be exercising their power. But we need to do this in a way that is more collegial, that is supporting one another, that we're setting the direction and not reacting. I don't want to, I feel bad. And again, I did tell you in October that I wanted to suspend. I asked her if we could suspend this because I wasn't ready as a new chair to come in and to properly react to. And so I kind of have gone along. But I will tell you with the second Globe editorial, I feel like I have screwed up and I should have demanded that we stop, demanded a hiatus to allow me to get my sea legs. And I apologize to you, and I apologize to Susan, but I did ask for this way back when, because I didn't feel that I was competent to do this. So again, I apologize, I lay it out there for you. I don't know exactly what this sort of list of accomplishments, activities that I would like to see, but I'm just hearing back from stakeholders. I mean, we're about to have another 400 people come in. And for the second time, I've talked to the head of, equity. And I've asked, what's our goal? Well, the goal is the individual's goal. No, but what's our goal? It's not our goal. It's the individual's goal. And I'm saying, we're about to spend $750,000 on an advertising campaign, to bring in another cohort. We're about to bring in another cohort. We have 400 people who've gone through our SEP program who are at the provisional license stage. I believe that we need to halt what we're doing. We need to stop spending money there and take a tough look at where we're going with that. What does it mean? How do we redefine it? Because whoever comes in, they're not probably going to get licensed. And we have 400 people who are already at the provisional stage who've already spent money getting there, and they're not going to get licensed. So why are we spending money on it? So anyway, I'm gonna stop, and you guys can feedback, or we can just sort of pivot back there. But
I think we can't pivot back. I
No, I
think,
don't think so either.
all right,
you said a lot
Mhm.
about Sean and about this place, about the styles here, and, it's like, Sean, I know you always say you don't like confrontation, and this is very awkward. You have 5 bosses, you had 5 bosses before, historically, you've had a chair that doesn't let you speak. So I hear you, Shannon, and Madam Chair at the same time, right? Like, I hear you. I wish you would have said it 6 months ago, but you didn't, and that's okay. Well, I mean, but
But I also
in
thought
terms
you
of,
didn't know, like, what
You
you know
didn't-
now, too.
yeah, you didn't know what, you might have said it in your own way, right? But I think what you're saying today is, a lot of it, I hear you. I hear a lot of what you're saying. What's really hard too is that we can have conversations, and sometimes we're afraid to bring these conversations to public meeting. We're respectful, of some things and some people, so we don't do it. But,
So in the statute too, if we scroll down in the same statute, how do you square the affairs of the commission with the executive director shall be the executive and administrative head of the commission?
I think that you execute. I think that you are supposed to execute. And I think that we need to figure out how you execute your job and how the chair maintains the ability. It says here, it says that you administer, that you fulfill, right? And it says here that the chair has and exercises supervision and control over all affairs of the commission. And it says that you execute that. So I think that the term is control. Where does that control for the chair turn into direction for you to execute? So again,
Right.
I just want to clarify, Sean, because if you walked away from that meeting where I was saying to you, I want to support you, I want to work with you,
And thank you, Commissioner Kumar, because I think that is part of the challenge here is there are a lot of conversations that context matters, and the carrying of that conversation and how things turn into storylines is important too. One of the things I'm struggling with here is I've now served under 3 chairs, all of whom have different interpretations of what that exact section of that statute means. And I think responding a little bit to Commissioner Roy's point about how this agency functions different than others, I would agree. I would agree wholeheartedly. Each of the examples that were referenced, there is one principle. DA, AG, governor, treasurer, the entire agency orbits around that one single person. In this agency, I get 5 different directives on a daily basis of what your individual expectations are. And that's my responsibility, as far as I'm concerned, to make sense of all of that and try to manage. It is an impossible task. And so the 5 of you sitting there today, judging my performance and not reflecting on how you're contributing to it is incredibly frustrating. Because I get 5 directions on what I should and ought to be doing on a daily basis. And what I'm not hearing a lot of is support. What I'm not hearing a lot of is self-reflection, self-awareness. And it's frustrating. It's very frustrating. That is where I would argue this agency is vastly different. Let's use the lottery. Let's use PRIM. Those are volunteer boards.
Use print.
Let's use the lottery. Those are volunteer boards.
Use whatever you want to use, but just go ahead.
They're volunteer boards. You're full-time employees.
Mhm.
So I guess I'd be curious, Madam Chair, if you're going to exercise this authority, what is the reaction of the other 4 commissioners in that vein? Are you independent where you self-govern your own directives, or are you going to answer to the chair and take her demands and orders?
If I can just, because this is what has happened, I think, since Chair Hoffman has left, is that you are now negotiating and directing individual commissioners, right? For instance, you and I had a conversation about how we put together a search team for the new chief people officer. You don't engage me in that, and this specifically says that the chair is responsible for delegation of work of the commissioners. Now, I know that where we are right now, that is probably troublesome for people, but that's what the statute says. And the executive director has stepped into that vacuum since Chair Hoffman is gone, and you are now divvying up the work. For instance, I did not get to ask or tell you which subcommittee I wanted to work on.
Yes, you did.
No, you told me I was on social equity.
No, I called and asked you if that's something you'd be comfortable with and gave you every opportunity to say no. I just want to make sure
Okay.
you had every opportunity to say no, you wanted something else. I was asking what you were interested in, and I did indicate.
What I'd like to do.
Yeah, but
now,
if I
next,
can,
what I'd like to do is let the other commissioners make some comments. Just like to hear from other people. Well, I mean, this statutory language was at the center of, I think, the reason for initiating this entire project.
Mhm.
And we had a lot of conversations before you were here with Chair Kim. And this is the root of it. So I'd like to hear from other commissioners, your sense of the issues that have been raised in the last 45 minutes.
Yeah, this is gonna not be a consistent stream of thought, but I'm trying to offer some reaction to everything that everybody's already said. You know, my previous job, this job, is unique. It's unique to state government. There's only two examples of where this functions. 5 full-time bosses with an executive director who's responsible to all 5 of us. It's clunky. We can't meet. I like the idea of a second meeting, more so that we have more chances to talk, more so we can agree in a public meeting what direction, what synthesis of work we want to assign to the executive director. And we're at a different phase with this commission than my previous job. So the organization is here. The folks have been hired. We've given out 500 or so commence operation licenses. But, I think all of us would agree it's now kind of time to stop and see how the airplane that got built that was going down the runway, see how we operate in a more mature state of business. I do want to see us find agreement on this document that guides how all 5 of us work, guides the roles and responsibility of the executive director. And I appreciate what the chair is saying in terms of, and I've said this before, we're complaint box A.
Mhm.
Nobody pokes criticism at an investigator. Nobody pokes criticism at or CFAO or any of the even direct reports, right? It's the Boston Globe or anybody else that takes shots at full-time employees. And we're with the executive director kind of at, the top of the shooting range. So I think that does give us the authority and the ability to put programs, put operations kind of under the microscope. I've talked about it before in terms of the executive director's goals. How do those become all of our unified goals? How do we all contribute to those goals? But I hear the chair when I want something that clearly takes us from the crazy ramp up period that we were once at to the steady state of business, and hopefully giving staff the understanding of where they fit into the picture, but more to us being able to accept responsibility of our work with the executive director and our responsibility to the public, our responsibility to to the money that pays all of our salaries and all of us to oversee and offer direction to the rest of this agency.
I think we just need to recalibrate. In my examples, Sean, and I understand what you're saying, there's 5 of us, not 1, right? But, okay. But we have an inverted hierarchy here. Everything is bottom up. Stop democratizing everything. Like return to office.
First, Chairwoman, I'm glad that said everything that you needed to say, and there was no need to apologize for that. I think it's always helpful for us to have this space to really understand, what you're seeing now from your perspective. I have a lot of thoughts because there's a lot that's been said here. The most prominent thought on my mind is I'm really concerned about the reaction to what we have and the message that we're sending, not just to staff, because I think for a while we were talking about staff and us, but now there's a lot of external focus on the Cannabis Control Commission and our secret meetings that we're having now for governance and what's coming out of that. And I will be really blunt and honest. I'm concerned about the message that this sends. We've gotten down to the weeds of a lot of things, and I don't think that we've really course corrected on the culture here. And I feel like you've said this today, and I'm glad that you're saying it today, because now you're kind of forcing us all to take a step back and look at what we've done and what we're doing. And I understand the perspective and the position that you're in, because I've also had pushback. I've also had things that I've wanted to initiate or done, and then there's like whole plans developed without me even being in the conversation. So I understand that, and it is incredibly frustrating. And those are my initial thoughts, and I'm still processing and thinking it through, but I'm fearful of the message that we're sending when this is released. Because there's just so much, not just staff, but the globe is gonna eat this up.
Can you
there's
say,
too-
what do you think the globe eats up? What do you mean?
I think they will say that we've spent about a year in this process, and it's become like micromanaging. It's like, this is not a directive that we are producing. This is not, it is like a master SOP.
Do you think this document makes us better? Because I know.
It's not that it makes us better, is that, Commissioner Roy, you said that this has been democratized, and how we function and how the culture here has built. It's not that it makes us better, because I think, to Sean's point, we ourselves have issues.
But you saying that the document does, so that was the purpose, though. The purpose was to.
Yeah, what I'm saying, it's not that it makes it better, is that what I was gonna say is that it gives staff some clarity. And even though it is a little bit of micromanaging in some aspect of it, every little word, every little thing, but because we haven't, this is just my opinion, but I think because we haven't had this conversation, because we haven't had a document like this, it's been the wild, wild west. But I also, and this is, I think, hard for all of us probably to admit, but like, we all have played a part in bits and pieces of everything at this commission. So we do have some policies in place that, that we're still breaking. And I think that's just natural. It happens. We're doing our own thing. We don't want to tell anybody. So there's still stuff that we as commissioners are doing and have done throughout the last year and a half, whatever it is. And, because we're commissioners, we have this sort of notion that we're probably either better than everybody else, or that we're higher leadership. And yes, we're commissioners. Yes, we've gotten to the stage of our career and all that. And there is, yes, there should be someone helping us probably to pick up our lunch at least, right? We don't ask for anything else, right? We don't ask for anything.
I pick up lunch for staff.
Right, so I know, so I think it's the culture that has developed at this place. I think with the first court of commissioners and the start of energy of this place, that then we have, we've sort of like, for lack of better words, we're waiting for a chair, right? To sort of come in and sort of help us, sort of move forward. But I think there's a big part, and I think it's also us. I think we're also breaking a lot of rules, not rules, but we're doing things and probably not being responsible at times. I think, Sean, for you, like, you're not saying much right now. I can only imagine what you're thinking, but there's a lot at play. And, to Commissioner Roy's point, we delegated the decision to you to back to office. I've respected the process in terms of you set up a committee, you guys have been meeting, you've decided, so, I get that as commissioners, and I get what you're saying, Commissioner Moore, that we should be dictating a lot more. And I agree with that. We haven't had the plan, the relationships, or the trust. And I think even from Sean, amongst all of us, to be able to do that, there's a major lack of trust in this agency. There's major lack of trust amongst each other. And then there's always surprises. There's always things that happen. And then there's personalities, Chair, I've thought about this a lot after going to the Ways and Means meeting. It's like, we talk about, I think, and I don't want you to take this too personal, but I don't know if it's like becoming a chair turns you differently or the chairs come with certain personalities, but we talk about, oh, we're gonna let Sean speak, and let, same thing that, old chair, you said it a little bit too, and it's like, then it comes to the point and we don't let Sean speak. So I think that sometimes we want Sean to step up, we want Sean to lead, we want Sean to make the decision, but then we don't allow him to make it. And if he does, then we're all over him. So this is a very interesting case study for public administration and for leadership. It keeps me up at night because I love leadership styles. I love to study management and then putting people all in a room. This is my first time as a commissioner. It is very unique. It is a unique agency. I have worked for many high-level officials in state government and in corporate, and this is definitely interesting. You said the word earlier, like, how do we, I want to fix this. And I hope that you're looking at this lens from not you personally in a selfish note as the chair, because I know you've been through a lot at this commission already. And I know that of itself, you take on personally, that then goes on to the document. But I know you're looking at the statutory stuff. And to Sean's point, every chair has been different. Personality has been different. Egos have been different. Personal agendas have been different. And, the interpretation of the statute and the document is why we're here. So to me, it's like, I'm talking, but I don't even want to say concretely what I really feel in terms of how we've been managing, how we've been leading. I've told Sean for the last year and a half, don't be afraid to step up. Don't be afraid to, and this is me personally, I can't speak for you all, but I've said to him, don't be afraid to tell me, Nuris, shut up. Nuris, sit down. The Ways and Means.
That's not his job, though.
But he's the executive director. He should be able to manage and wait, don't hold on. It is his job.
It's not.
It is his job. So then, I mean, we've delegated back to office, right? That's a big decision that he has to make and that he needs to make it himself. For him to have relationships with us commissioners and say, hey, you know what, Commissioner Camargo, why don't you sit this one out? Like, it is part of his job to have those conversations with us, to help us decide, to guide us. Because then otherwise, if it's not his job, we haven't had this before, right? We haven't had this before.
No, but this is what I'm saying, so this is what the chair's job is. And what we now require is he has 5 bosses all telling him what to do. And this is the conversation I had with him when you and I were having the conflict, because even though you weren't part of that decision, you decided you wanted to testify, even though it was against practice and even though it was in contravention to what we've written here. So he ended up having to, between you and me. Good. So, but it's not good. And this is where the surprises, the coordination. The chair is supposed to be coordinating the work of the individual commissioners.
And this is where I think, so let's talk about.
But if I could just.
Well, let me just finish because you went into Ways and Means. So I understand what we've done in the past. This is not 1990 state government Beacon Hill. This is 2023. It is different. We don't have to do what people always do, which was one of my comments. I'm just saying, which is one of my comments on Ways and Means. We said through Ways and Means, we were almost the last people to testify. Different people came up. undersecretaries, their chief
Whatever,
of staff,
whatever,
their
yeah,
treasurers, 2, 3 people.
So what?
We don't have to do what the commission has done in the past. You specifically said, oh, I want Sean to, I'm gonna window dress, I want Sean to speak, blah, blah, blah. I was so disappointed with the testimony at Ways and Means for 2 reasons. One is you all did your speaking, you did your points. As soon as they asked questions, you jump in. Sean didn't have the opportunity to speak too much. You kept going and kept talking, and then that's okay, that's your prerogative, you're allowed to do that. But you sort of contradicted yourself from the other chairs. You did the same thing that other chairs have done in the past, is not allow Sean to speak. The person who's been here longer has been Sean. At that moment in time, I was like, oh man, here we go again, right? Sean is not allowed to speak. You sort of kept speaking. What I also realized from that is that there was stuff that was miscategorized in terms of data point, in terms of our social equity program. And then Sean, I could tell Sean couldn't find a way to jump in and sort of like kind of say to you like, hey, chair, let me get in there a little bit, right? I think you kind of just, you were in the moment and you kind of kept speaking. So when I looked at that, I said to myself, okay, I understand what we've talked about, what we've done in the past, but at the commission, for lack of better words, it could be Sean, the chair, the secretary, and or Sean, the chair, another commissioner, and or Sean, the chair, and, depending on where we're at within Ways and Means, within the timings of any of it or any of that. So my take back from that was, and I was gonna talk about it today, for the Ways and Means, it doesn't just have to be the chair and the ED. I understand
That's fine.
what we've done in the past and everything else, but, Commissioner Ray, I'm gonna use as an example, you've now redefined the secretary role. You know a lot about the SOPs, you know about the minutes, you know what's going on, you're sort of looking at bigger picture, depending on what the temperature of the CCC, there could have been a role.
So can we kind of bring it back, because
Yeah,
I
let me
was
just-
making a
let me-
point and you
I know,
interrupted
let
me,
me-
I'd like to finish.
Let me just finish.
All right.
So my point is that, and I'm just using an example. For that piece of it, we could use somebody else, and I know we'll come back to it, but my point is to say all that, because you guys asked for comments, is that we ourselves are not taking some of the responsibility.
I'm gonna.
Okay, but I
Okay,
need to,
so-
I need to respond to that, because what happened, what happened was there was a decision made and staff overruled that decision that was made and did it without telling Sean, did it without telling me.
I get that.
So whether or not
I
you
get that.
appreciated my testimony, I
get
answered
that.
questions that probably took longer than Sean did. Sean answered questions.
I get
and we
that.
both answered. So, and maybe I talked longer, okay. But the point is not whether or not you liked how I presented. It's the decision was made and
Sure.
staff overruled us. And
I get
I'm
that.
not gonna allow
I get
that
that.
to happen.
I get
But from my point is that Sean shouldn't have to be responding to 5 bosses, right?
So who should he be responding to?
That's what I'm saying, is that I want to make sure that we preserve the intent of the statute. What I see here is that, and we have it someplace in here, that the chair delegates the work of the individual commissioners. I think we need to be meeting more often. I think we need to be creating a consensus and understanding what people want. You don't want surprises. Maybe we have that conversation about RMV or something like that. But I think that there needs to be a coordination, so Sean is not the person brokering the conflicts. I don't want to keep fighting a proxy war with staff, with you, and that is happening. You and I are getting into conflicts because you're representing certain voices within the staff, and I am having conversations about.
Yeah, you gotta be careful what you say.
Yeah.
All right,
Shannon,
I'm
you said this
gonna-
before. I am not representing voices in the staff.
All right.
You're taking a lot of stuff personal, you're taking it to heart.
Okay.
And
I'm
we're
gonna-
having
I'm
a
gonna-
discussion,
I'm
we're
gonna
having
call
a,
the timeout.
look what
Okay.
section we just started,
Mhm.
and look what all this came up, right? So don't, be careful what you say, because you continue to target me with that same
I am
comment.
not targeting.
Yes, you
I am
are.
being I am
Yes, you
being
are.
targeted.
Yes, you
I
are.
am being targeted.
Yes, you are. This
Okay.
all sounds very personal.
Time out, everybody, okay? Here's the situation, all right?
You're representing other staff, if you're saying I'm
Commissioner
representing certain
Commissioner
staff,
Margot,
I am.
please,
I am.
please,
Sorry,
please
Susan.
give me a
Sorry.
chance, okay?
you can't sit there and just say that.
Okay. I think we need to come back
Mhm.
to Commissioner Concepcion's comment that you have spent a lot of money and a lot of time. Sorry, I do that every, Commissioner Concepcion, I'm very sorry. I'm really sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you say? I already
I said your
apologized.
name, I said your
Oh.
name and I meant.
No, you didn't. You said my name.
Said it
You
right.
said it right.
I just want to
She
remember.
was just
what I
coming
said.
back. She didn't forget. She forgot what you said.
You were looking at me, I thought I made it, because I did that once.
I
All
was
right,
trying to remember what.
starting again. Okay,
Reset.
reset.
I say one sentence. I think.
Commissioner, I'm gonna talk, okay?
Okay.
Commissioner, I'm gonna talk, okay? Commissioner Concepcion said that the response that this document gets is critical to the commission. And I am hoping that you can all use that reality as a means for stepping back to look at the document and what needs to be in the document so that it gets the reception that you need, so that you can all rise above all of the personal stuff that has
Nonsense.
informed many, many elements of the document. So going on for another 6 months in this document isn't gonna make it better for the commission when it's finally released. If people are talking about these secret meetings that you're having, we need to get to a point where this is done and there's a product that you feel good about releasing. Okay, and so that means we walk through the document, we delete what is an SOP, which is what we tried to do. We clarify the authorities, which was the original intent of the document. And there are some discussions to have, because what I hear you saying is you're the voice of the commissioners. And that's what, so that.
No, she's not.
No, I'm
The chair
not.
is
No,
not.
I'm not.
No, I'm not.
Be here for a second.
That's nice.
And that is-
That was, but that was the crumb that was left.
May I finish?
Yeah.
Okay, because Sean asked the question, what are the other commissioners feel? So how does that dynamic happen when Sean asks each of his bosses how they feel about something? And is it that you go to the other commissioners and say, you tell me what you want, I'm gonna make a decision and then go to Sean? Like, I'm just saying, this is an issue that, I'm not asking for a response.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, this is the crux of the issue that needs to be discussed
Mhm.
and reflected in the document, that's all. So I'm gonna ask if we can set aside
Mhm.
all of the personal
Mhm.
for a couple of hours and walk through the document as though you are the Boston Globe reporter who is going to write the article
Way to do it.
about this. Okay? Yeah.
And I do want to pick up on Commissioner Concepcion's point. We have spent a lot of time on this, and I think for me, it's easy. I'm less conflicted about getting to a point wherever that may be and say, well, why did it take so long? What were these secret meetings, whatever the backlash is? First of all, you have 5 new people. We've had a chair who's only, again, been here at kind of picked up midway through the process. It's been a learning process for us. We've each gone through this. It's why it's gone through so many iterations. It was too granular. We peel back the granular. What role does the treasurer play? Let's peel that back. What role does the secretary play? Let's give more to that. It is engaging with senior staff for, I think it's still worthwhile effort to get their feedback, or at least get their viewpoint. But this is a document that we own at the end of the day, and our executive director owns at the end of the day. I'm comfortable with saying this was a learning experience for 5 new people. We wanted to get this right. We're trying to answer a big question, which is unique in state government, again, because of our structure. And it was a learning experience. I mean, we were able to go through stuff and have the executive directors had the benefit of being here 5 years now to be able to weigh in and say, that didn't work for this reason, or that didn't work for the other reason. So I feel I could defend this to any outside stakeholder
I
who's
agree.
poking fun at us.
I agree. Cares
Maybe
about the
being a
globe.
little critical. But that said, I still want to get a document, which at the end of the day, all 5 of us can sign. And if there are people on our team that don't like how this final document reads,
Okay.
sorry, we are complaint box say, we're the ones who at the end of the day are being held accountable with the executive directors to how this agency functions. And while we appreciate their input, it's, to use Commissioner Roy's point, it's not the democratization of leadership. We still have an ultimate role to play at the end of the day. So I wanted to just reflect on Commissioner Concepcion's point, because I do find it, as a document I could defend, because it's a unique process and we've learned a lot going through it, just with the questions that we've asked about, how does this function?
Right.
How does that function? Why can we not go to IU, investigations and enforcement? Why does this happen?
I agree.
So,
But it needs to speak on its face.
Huh?
I understand what you're saying. Yes, I can defend anything technically, but it needs to speak on its face. It needs, when someone is reading this, they're gonna have their own, this is what they have. They don't have these conversations that we're having around it.
but they'll have access to that if they want to get into it. But at the same time, I hear you. It's like, what is this, does this document, I think Susan, your point, does it address the question that was raised for its intended purpose at the beginning? And is it something we can all agree on with the executive director?
Commissioner Roy?
Yeah, thank you. Couple of things. Culture is set from the top. And we need to remember that throughout this, document. And I agree with Commissioner Concepcion. And I agree with you, Susan, that's a great approach. Like, how is a Boston Globe going to look and analyze this? And that's what we have to be mindful of. And, we could tear this whole thing up and put, the chair shall have and exercise supervision and control over the affairs of the commission, and the executive director shall be the executive and administrative head of the commission in consultation with commissioners. So we have to, anything that yields, twice the Boston Globe has said the tail is wagging the dog. What does that mean? That means the staff is running the show. It means Sean's not running the show and we're not running the show. That's what the legislators are saying. The staff is running the show at the Cannabis Control Commission. In this document, anything that says the staff is running the show needs to go. Because he needs to run the show with you in consultation with us. That's who
But
runs.
it's also
Could-
why
could
Senator
Commissioner-
Moore, it's also why Senator Moore has filed a bill, because they don't trust
I don't
us.
think,
They don't trust us to make this place function.
Commissioner Roy,
Mhm.
the two parts of the statute that you read
are in
are in
conflict.
conflict.
There's a
And that's,
tension.
that has been, my understanding is the reason why the commissioners and Sean
Yes.
initiated this is because those
Yes.
two statements contradict, and we're trying to,
But do you see what's happening?
Yeah.
Because they contradict, the staff is the one filling the void. These two things rub, therefore.
It's the opposite
That's
of
what
what
the
Susan is
evening
saying.
commission
That's
Yes.
why we're here.
Yeah,
Like, we're
so
trying
this is
to-
what we need to do. This needs to come to agreement, who does what. Somebody's gonna give a little, somebody's gonna give a little, somebody's gonna give. And, in consultation with us. So, Sean, you have most of the power because you had to. But something's gotta give and somebody's gotta come in the middle, you guys gotta. Because if not, then the staff gets the middle. And we can't, that's not right. That's just why we have this dysfunction. So figure out what you guys can say. This is in your lane, this is in your lane. Just come together, come up with a list where your lane, in consultation with us. Because this is what happened. This is the problem.
But it's also developing the culture, because, again, I use the pension fund, and it's why the lottery isn't a good example, but the pension fund, the governor appoints, the treasurer is there, the treasurer appoints, and it's the culture that works. It's the respect of the position of the chair. But the board members still wield significant power.
Meaning us.
Yes, and so we've got to develop a culture, but I feel I have been targeted by certain staff people. I have been undermined by staff people, and I feel that the way this document is being written totally obliterates what was clearly put into statute, even if it's complicated. It obliterates my ability to say I can designate some staff to do certain things. That's clearly in the statute here. And so now we're saying that everything I choose to do in consult with at least one commissioner, that I can't do that. And I think that's wrong. And I think that that cedes your power as well.
Do you think you feel that for real, Chair? And that-
Absolutely. Do you think I don't feel I've been targeted since?
No, I
the
know how you
beginning?
feel. No, I know how you feel. What I'm saying, do you feel that that's what's in this document?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Sean, do you have some
Yeah,
thoughts?
I was just gonna ask Sean to give his thoughts and then we'll take a break and decide how we're moving forward.
Okay.
Sean?
So I've been listening carefully to this, and I think we're starting to come around to the origins of this entire project, which is, and I'll try to make this as clear as possible, but it might ramble a little bit, so I apologize in advance, is one of the things that I think is a struggle is none of the statute, whether it be the responsibilities of the chair, responsibilities of commissioners, or even responsibilities of the executive director, there is some tension and conflict there. And we spent some time early on in this exercise discussing big C, little c, commission, public body, commission, state agency, and where the two are, they're related, but they're different. And therefore, what is the authority of the chair as it pertains to the public body versus the state agency? Similarly, the role of the executive director, public body versus state agency as well. One of the concerns I've had, and I think commissioners have lived through this, and now I often remark that I've lived through 11 commissioners in my tenure. Just about each commissioner has a different perspective on what the role should, could, or ought to be, or in fact is. And that's the purpose of a governance charter, is that it should not be dependent upon the present incumbent of that role. The role should be consistent regardless of who occupies it. That's true for the role of chair, secretary, treasurer, and executive director. It shouldn't be the next executive director is almighty versus completely neutered of any power or authority. The same is true for the chair. They shouldn't have to come in, this is true of the chair, excuse me, a new chair shouldn't come in and spend 6 to 8 months figuring out what's my power, what's my authority, and then face those questions, frankly, of you have power you're not exercising, or you have power that you're is not being granted to you. This document should be what dictates that. And we talked about it being, this is again early on in our entire exercise, a job description for a new commissioner, because the beginning phase of a new commissioner coming into office is, what do I do here? What is my authority? What is my role? What is my function? And we haven't figured it out in 5 years. We haven't figured it out because the statute's not clear. And I'm not saying it's not clear because I'm looking to cling to something, to be honest. I appreciate, I vented earlier as far as I get directions from 5 people. That's because I try to get feedback from 5 people. That's because when I do try to make a unilateral decision, I get criticized for making a unilateral decision because it didn't include the input or thoughts of 1 commissioner versus 4, or 3 commissioners versus 2. Because any one of you may have a strong feeling about a direction I should take, but then someone else has the counter opinion. And again, it sometimes feels to me like if I make a decision that all of you agree with, then I have the authority to make it. If I make the decision that 1 or 2 of you disagree with, then it's a commission decision. It ought to be reserved for the commission. And so I think the governance document has the ability to be that safety net. Any questions, we go back to this document. What does it say? Any questions as to role or authority or perspective, we go back to this document. What does it say? Because that should ease the learning curve, that steep learning curve of what is the role of a commissioner. It should also help, frankly, recruit commissioners someday. What am I getting myself into? Because let's be honest, if any of you were to resign, move on, or move into something else, there's not a glowing advertisement for the role of a commissioner today. There's not a glowing advertisement for the role of an executive director today. Anyone coming in is going to Google us, and it's probably going to be a difficult exercise to find somebody because it's not clear. And obviously that tension is bleeding into the public now, unfortunately. Obviously, any role I've played in that, I apologize. I am here with the best of intentions, trying to get to what I hope is a living governance charter that dictates our roles and responsibilities. So, but again, I can see that confusion and lack of clarity. I don't love that this document as we have it right now does feel micromanaging to me, but I can appreciate that we've we've brought a lot of those experiences into this document to try to at least clarify what should happen next time something comes up. But in doing that, I think we may have lost sight of the bigger picture.
Sean, can I ask you a question? Because we keep saying, I'm just gonna say for the record, I respect the Globe, but I'm also not gonna manage per what the Globe. I don't want, I understand how we're using the example, but we should not worry about what the Globe will say. People will talk about the secret meetings, and I get that, you know,
Mhm.
Commissioner, to your point, but I think to Bruce's point too, like, we also gotta be careful. There's a lot of politics involved in this. We come from, you know, different appointing authorities, all of us, like, I'm just saying, let's not use the Globe example 100%, because I think that we can communicate this to, you know, Commissioner Stebbins' point, you know, to your point, Commissioner Concepcion. So I want to just say that one point. And then the other point is that I'm curious about this tail and the dog wagging situation and the staff and sort of the middle piece of this, because what I'm hearing is sort of like, Sean, you're not doing your job and the staff is managing you. So I'm just really curious to your perspective as a leader that's been here 5 years, like, fill in some of that for me, because, you know, again, we only get an hour, 2 hours a week with you and things like that, but, you know, I'm curious your thoughts and comment around that.
Yeah, you're gonna get a mixed bag from me. There are absolutely circumstances where I'm mad as hell about some of the work that goes on. But there's also opportunities where I don't know everything. And so let's use return to office. I'm frustrated at the pace of that. I do think it's time that we be back in the office. I tried to delegate an exercise, and it included commissioners and staff as far as HR elements, technology capabilities, obviously any operational concerns, but also what are the roles of commissioners in return to office? What are the expectations around commissioners? So by trying to be inclusive in that, it turned into a group exercise. And what I did get was a recommendation last week. I'm sitting with it right now. Philosophically, I have some concerns about it. But now it's my responsibility to go back to either to that team or just implement those changes that I might be most comfortable with. But what I do hear often is and I take the feedback from Commissioner Roy seriously as far as the democratization of a lot of this. There's got to be a sweet spot where people feel included in a decision-making process, that expertise is tapped into. I'm not an expert in everything. I don't understand all things as far as our IT capabilities or HR elements. And obviously, I'm also trying to be guided by my goals, which is, what does a world-class agency look like? What does an inclusive agency look like? And so, yeah, but there's pace-wise, I think this place can be sluggish, but there's a lot of touch points as well, and that includes the commissioners for that matter. I'm not going to be shy about that. And then my decision-making process, personally, I am a very I'm trying to think of a polite way to put this about myself. It's hopefully I'm being critical of myself. I can spend a lot of time in my own head. I can try to look at every situation from every possible angle. And as a result, it can be hopefully not a long process, but it can be drawn out. So, because I try to be as thoughtful as possible, but that can be a dangerous. Therefore, for some people's take or some people's or taste, excuse me, I'm not as decisive as they might prefer. And again, I'm reflective and self-aware about that.
All right.
I wanted to add something, just because I did mention the Globe, but I did that because it's an easy thing to conceptualize because it's happening. The reason why I brought that as an example is because I wanted to make sure that we're mindful about the external impact of this and the way that it will be perceived by people outside of this agency. We are a tax-funded public agency. We are all public officials. This is all, people are clamoring at the bit to understand what the hell we do on a day-to-day and where their money goes to. And this is time is money. We spend hours doing this. There's a lot of curiosity. There's a lot of people who want to know what we produce and what we've been doing. And that's why, what I was trying to say, but I just said the Globe because it's just an easy thing to say. But I do like the way that you're saying approach it in that way.
And I just want to add to that I was kind of trying to use that as a way to get some distance, right? So for us to think of, for you to think of yourselves as the framers of the charter for the commission. And I understand how the process has gone, but we are at a point where it's time to step back from the personal And that doesn't mean that persons have not been harmed along the way, and that there are, all of those feelings are legitimate all around. And now the question is, can we look at this document as though you've all moved on and you're giving this to your successors? How do you want this to read so that they understand it and it makes sense and it makes things run smoother? Last comment from Commissioner Roy, then I'm gonna take a bio break.
For Sean,
Yeah.
for you. We know there's examples of where direct reports aren't really taking your directive. I'd like to know the definition of it. Maybe we have to put the definition of what a direct report is. What is a direct report? I mean, it seems obvious, right? You report to Sean. But is it? Because are they really sometimes? I don't know. And number two is, it may be where Sean and Shannon need to get in a room and work this tension out. Have a full throated conversation and work this tension out. Because right now, I'm gonna ask all of you, besides her setting the agenda, knowing what this statute says, besides her setting this agenda, what other authority is she exercising here at this commission right now in line with this
So
statute?
I want to pick up on that after a break.
Okay.
But I want to do it in the context
Of, right,
of the roles and responsibilities of the chair. Because that's where we should be having this
Okay.
discussion
Right.
and make concrete changes to that
Right.
section
That is
as
aligned
needed,
with the
as opposed to keeping the conversation
Okay.
very broad.
Right.
Okay, so what I'm gonna suggest when we come back is that we set aside the comments we received from the comms team, because that is hard to not make personal. And so
Right.
I'd rather start with the rest of the document and go through and see where there are changes that need to be made, both in terms of cutting things, because it's too much micromanagement, in terms of clarity of authorities, and in terms of protecting against the kinds of issues that you've been raising in terms of what's the role of the executive director, what's the role of the chair, what's the role of the commissioners, and what's the role of the staff. So I need to buy a break, so I'm calling it. And I think we all do. And it's 20 to 12, so let's come back at 10. We'll take lunch at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay.
Wait, order lunch now.
So we're now on page 4. Roles and responsibilities of the commission chair. And just A says has and exercises supervision and control over all the affairs of the commissioners. And the footnote is to 76H, which is part of the statute that you have in front of you that the chair has brought to our attention. But I will open up the floor. Take a minute and read number 2 all the way through. And then I will open the floor for suggested revisions, if any.
You asking if we agree or don't agree with that line?
No, I just wanted to let you know that the footnote refers to the statute that we have in front of us. At H, the chair shall have and exercise supervision and control over all the affairs of the commission, et cetera.
I think it says
That's the-
commissioners.
Yes, so here it says commissioners and the statute says commission, and that was the clarification that we were trying to make, so. Anyone need another minute? Okay, so opening the floor for suggestions.
Can I, and I'm just gonna restate one of the suggestions, again, in order to work towards that more collaborative relationship, I think moving A up to right under A, makes sense.
Okay, let's just make sure everyone agrees with that. Move K to B. Does that make sense to everyone?
K to B.
It becomes, yes,
A
the second,
becomes B.
yeah.
Everyone okay with that?
Just for visual purposes, Chair, yeah? For visual purposes?
I just think having it higher up is sending a message that this is in collaboration with the executive director.
Okay.
Um,
Yes.
G and the old K both refer to work and project assignments of commissioners. It appears a little duplicative. I don't know if we could strike G if it's covered in the new B,
In the new
the old
B.
K.
Okay,
Yeah, that's the same comment, like B and G are just gonna sit.
Yeah.
So
so
we striking?
strike G. Because it says that works cooperatively with the executive director, and it says on work and project assignments of commissioners. You okay with that?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
And the one thing is, I would like to have that footnoted to section that, under H, that section I. Two commissioners shall participate in the hearing and decision of matter, provided further that such matter may be heard, examined, and investigated by an employee of the commission designated and assigned by the chair with the concurrence of one other commissioner. I think that.
So you want to add I to the footnote?
That's to the footnote, yeah.
Okay.
Can we unpack, Madam Chair, the reference to the employees? Are you suggesting that's related to all work, or is that, I view that as limited to hearings? In other words, the commission can sit and hear matters being licensing, enforcement, all things that are under your purview. But it seems to me that the language is specific to hearings and formal. So it's almost like a hearing officer or something of that nature versus,
It's not what the statute says. It says provided further that any such matter may be heard, examined, and investigated by an employee of the commission designated and assigned by the chair with the concurrence of one other commissioner. It doesn't limit it to hearings. For instance,
What page is that, Chair?
it's section I. It's in the statute. It's
section H.
under H or after H.
It's I, it's actually
Section I.
I is the commission shall appoint an executive director.
Thank you.
I, the commissioner shall, if so directed, participate in the hearing and decision of any matter before the commissioners, if so directed by the chair, in the hearing and decision of any matter before the commission, provided however that at least two commissioners, so again, it's establishing that, in essence, quorum, if you will, required for hearings, but then it says, provided further that any such matter may be heard, examined, and investigated by an employee of the commission designated and assigned by the chair with the concurrence of one other commissioner. So unpack that. How do you?
That's what I'm trying to do is hearing and decision of matters other than those of formal or administrative character coming before the commission. The provided further informs the previous sentence, it's not a new sentence that creates a new authority.
But it allows for the deployment of staff resources to execute when an issue needs to be investigated with the concurrence of one commissioner. And I don't think we've ever done that.
No, we haven't. I guess that's why I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to make sure there's a alignment or consistency of understanding. So I'm seeing the word hearing and administrative matter, administrative character coming before the commission. I'm not seeing it as administrative work necessarily. That's what I'm trying to.
But what I see is like, for instance, if we had a requirement, and again, this is where it gets clunky, where if we take the power away, then all of this has to go through the committee hearing process. So what this says is that if there is, I see what that is if we are talking about an issue, a policy, say it's looking at social equity and the definition of social equity. You know, it allows us to say we would like some staff to work on that. Now, if we need to make sure that with collaboration and conversation with the executive director, we make sure that the resources are there. But, you know, I don't think I ever really sort of dug into that before. And I'm just trying to make sure that we still have, as commissioners, the leverage to make things happen. Because, as I said, I have found when I have requested things and staff refuses to do so, and I have asked you to tell people and they still refuse. The org chart, for instance, 3 months. I think that this is how I can leverage one other commissioner to work with staff to make something happen.
Chair, could you just walk me through so I can understand? So let's say you asked for an org chart and you didn't get it. What would it look like if you were implementing this clause?
I couldn't just direct staff to do
Okay,
things.
but
I would
just-
have to have one other commissioner
So
concur.
you
that
and one
we
other commissioner would then what?
Would then be able to say to staff that this is something that we should be looking at. This is something that resources can be utilized to get back to the commission. So this is not a unilateral power of the chair.
Right.
It's something that is.
So the chair and one other commissioner can direct staff, direct
Saying
staff.
more than just the chair, it's saying any commissioner, saying the commissioners, but it's at the chair's direction.
Mhm.
Sean, are you saying hearing is a noun and she's saying it's a verb? You think it's an actual hearing? That way you're interpreting it, you're thinking it's a hearing, a noun.
Yes,
You're
that's
interpreting
participate in the hearing and decision of
Not
any
a
matter
hearing.
before the commission.
Not a hearing, the hearing. You're like saying hearing is, you're hearing someone, you're hearing an issue. You're saying it's a hearing. You're saying two different things.
Thank you. Yes, I think so. Well, at least I'm referring to it as an event.
It's the hearing.
Yeah.
It is a noun. Am I bugging? It is a noun,
And they're
right?
like, what's a noun, what's a verb right now?
So if you don't say, if it's saying hearing, participate in hearing, that is a verb. If you're saying the hearing, it's a noun.
So how does the how does the noun hearing change
That's
the interpretation relative to what the chair suggested?
So I'm reading it as the commission participates in hearings. They conduct hearings. And that hearing may be delegated by the commissioner and by the chair and one other commissioner may be delegated to the staff member who must then put their findings in writing for the commission to review and evaluate. To me, that's essentially designating a hearing officer.
I disagree.
Yeah.
So it's like, someone says, hearing none, the motion passes. Hearing none, that's a verb. Hearing none, you know what I mean? There's other ways to look at it, you know, like.
Participate in the hearing and decision of any matter before the commission.
The group participated in the hearing of concurring and dissenting opinions. You can put it in a sentence any way you want with
I'm
the,
reading the law, though. I'm not
No,
putting
I
it in a
know.
random sentence. It's for each hearing, the concurrence of a majority of the commissioners participating in the decision shall be necessary.
the hearing.
That's a
of-
hearing.
Can we take a break just really quick? So we're talking about a hearing for, we're using the example, Chair, of an org chart that you asked. I don't know who you asked or how, or any of this stuff. So using that example, you asked for an org chart 3 months ago. You had it, you didn't get it. And then you said something like, they said something like, put it in front of a
Well,
vote.
Sean asked them and they still didn't do it. So I am just looking at this as a formalized, this is how we get this done.
But that's the question. So is this where now the chair and another commissioner, or at the direction of the chair, two commissioners go to the staff person and say, do this? Or do you have to say, we're gonna have a hearing
No.
about this matter?
Right, that's my question.
Yeah, I don't think you have to have a hearing about the matter. I think that you ask an employee to, in essence,
How does the executive director role fit in there? So Sean says Sean asked and he got a no, but I mean, Sean, can you unpack that a little bit? Because if we then decide that, which I guess we can, that every single matter that you say no to, or that staff.
Sean
says no
doesn't
to-
say no, though. That's the whole point.
Well, Sean says no. Sean,
But what's the hearing? Because if we're, how are you understanding this? It says, the commissioners shall, if so directed by the chair, participate in the hearing and decision of any matter before the commission.
any matter, I'm just concerned. I don't know, Sean, I'm still looking. for
But
you.
it does say the hearing and decision.
That also
Before.
has, that's
So
important.
before the commission, not like Sean, not like this example that the chair's using.
No, that, this is a public
Yeah.
decision before the commission.
But I just will tell you, when I have grown frustrated and I have said to people, how do we get this done? Sean tells them what to do, people ignore.
Can we hear
And then
from Sean?
I have been told, go to the meeting,
Yeah.
make a motion and get it done that way, direct the staff to do. And so that's how I read that is that safety valve that we have to ensure that the employees are responsive to the will of the commissioners as well. And it doesn't allow the chair to unilaterally do this. It requires an
Sure.
additional commissioner to. But again, if we were functioning well, we wouldn't need any of this stuff. And so this is why I don't mean to give that sort of outside, but I literally said this to Sean months ago and nope, don't do it. So how do we, in that instance, Sean, how do you advise that? You know what I mean? How
Sean,
would you,
speak, Sean.
no, just how would you advise on something like that?
In which scenario are we talking about? This is the org chart?
My original scenario, when I asked for months ago, something to be done. And I didn't get any action, and then I asked you, and then you tell someone to do it, and then it doesn't get done. So this is where, and I don't like this, but this is where, as a commission member, I have to take it to my fellow commissioners to say, I want the staff to do A or B, and we're gonna have to do this, in a public setting, but it's, and that's how I see this functioning, but if I'm wrong,
Let's just try and hear from.
yeah.
So it's about the org chart.
Right.
That's the scenario.
Okay, that's the scenario, okay. That's an example.
So it is about the org chart. That's what I'm reacting to.
The scenario.
That's an example that I gave,
Sure,
but there could
okay.
be other things that, as a commissioner, I request information so I can do my job. And when it gets refused, and then you tell, and they refuse you,
Sure.
how?
And so the refusal in this part too was, and I don't want to use the word refusal, the reluctance or hesitation to that was around the specifics of we do have org charts on our intranet. They're accessible to the entire agency. This specific request was with photos and salaries of all employees included on the org chart and available to commissioners. The chair asked for it. I directed the staff to do it. And there was concern raised by our HR department about privacy and other elements. And that came back to me. I advised them to go talk with the chair directly to share that reluctance or hesitation. My understanding that occurred. So as a result, the pictures, I believe, were removed or were to be removed. And there was also some concern relative to the salaries. We do have some of our staff members that are under protective orders to not have their salaries published by the comptroller's office, given that there might be domestic abuse concerns and things like that. That's a formal state law ability. So those were the concerns that were raised, not the creation of an org chart, but the specific elements of it. If that, and I think I shared at the time, if that is a This is where I think in the past historically, and it sounds like in this instance too, possibly, if that expectation is not met, it shall be on an agenda for the commission to vote on publicly. Here, I think, Madam Chair, you're suggesting that this language could be the sort of, I think you made like the release valve or some sort of escape valve of avoiding that public discussion, but perhaps including one other commissioner in that, what is the prerogative or request or demand of a commission? So I don't view this language as authorizing that. That's my interpretation of it, but at least hopefully that's some color as to the org chart discussion that occurred over the past couple of months at least.
Can you just tell us how you do understand this section? Like,
Sure.
was it example-
There's a suitability matter before the commission, rather than having a full commission discussion debate. Authorize a hearing officer to conduct an initial examination and produce a report. That because also to be clear, it says here, for each hearing, the concurrence of a majority of the commissioners participating in the decision shall be necessary. Reading above a little bit too, such employee shall make a report in writing relative to the hearing. For the purposes of the hearing, examining and investigating any such matters, such employee shall have all the powers conferred upon a commissioner by this section. So to me, that's commission business. That's licensing matters. That's enforcement decisions, things like that, not administrative things. But that, again, that's my interpretation. I don't know that this statute too is clear, abundantly clear.
Susan, Sean, how do you reconcile the last half of that sentence? And provided further that any such matter may be heard, examined, and investigated by an employee of the commission designated and signed by the chair with concurrence of one of the commissioners, any such matter. How do you reconcile that?
What do you think they were getting at here?
What I was just referring to, it's licensing, suitability, enforcement, those things that are commission public policy matters that are not, I'm trying to think of what is purely administrative. I don't know, the phones, things like, I'm trying to think of what is not a commission decision necessarily. For me, this is basically adjudicatory. Suspend a license. I'm gonna delegate that to a hearing officer. When I use hearing officer as sort of a label or a title, any such matter that may be heard, examined, or investigated by an employee of the commission designated and assigned. It's provided, however, so that's filling in or interpreting the beginning aspect of that sentence. It's not it's informing that sentence, not creating a new authority, at least again, in my opinion.
What does it mean by other than those of a formal or administrative character?
I just pulled up 23K too. I owe the 5 of you an apology. I was actually looking at the Gaming Commission statute when I said that it's I, not H. So I was looking at the plagiarized version of our statute. You were correct. I was wrong. So it is I. To me, administrative character is, and I could be wrong here, it's things that are not sort of licensing or enforcement in nature. But again, that's an interpretation. It doesn't mean that it's true or factual.
Commissioner Concepcion, do you have a sense of, as someone who's read legislation, do you have an interpretation of I?
I am hesitant to say, I feel like there's so much here that, like, my immediate interpretation was that we were talking about hearings, decision making for those hearings that are commission matters. But that's just from a first read, not without picking it out. But I agree with Sean's interpretation.
I think that's what it speaks to. I think when it gets to other than those of formal or administrative character. For me, those are the things like voting to approve minutes, voting to elect an officer,
So,
the administrative pieces
so
too.
give me a practical example of how that further language would work. In what scenario? What would that be? I'm just trying to, go ahead, Sean. Yeah, I was like, actually.
Because this has actually been on my mind in the past week and a half or so. And actually, Madam Chair, it stems from those conversations with investigators, for instance. We operate, and I'm thinking this is future tense, not current status or current state of affairs. It's 0 to 60 as far as I'm concerned. It's you get a license, congratulations, best of luck to you. We're going to issue a $250,000 fine. I would like to get into a space where we do the more speeding ticket-esque enforcement matters, such as we're going to issue a $1,000 fine for continued noncompliance with notices of deficiency, where we don't need to jump or let things linger so long such that they become $250,000 fines and potential license revocation. But if we're continually going out into the field and finding metric violations and just sort of these ticky-tack enforcement matters, I would like to empower our investigators in the field to issue a $500 fine, a $1,000 fine. I think those things should be appealable to the commission. But are you going to want to sit at your monthly meetings and hold hearings on those fines as far as the appeals? Or in this instance, between the chair and one other commissioner, could you designate the hearing to a single commissioner or 2 commissioners, or again, sort of like a hearings officer that can consider those things and dispatch with them? Because you might end up with a volume where, let's say there's 10 a month or something of that nature, and you don't want those to be public meeting distractions, but instead you may designate. That's where I think this could come in useful. But I think it's really looking at those sort of what should be a routine, just transaction of business potentially. That's an idea. It's an example potentially where I see that this could come in handy.
But what do you think the legislature meant here?
I think this is one of those things that have been delegated that we didn't, this iteration of the commission was not here. I mean, I think the 3 of us were here, but it was still really early on. So Sean, I'm glad you bring up like enforcement actions, suitability, so on and so forth. And that was something that Sean does through that delegated authority. But technically speaking, there is supposed to be at least one commissioner who's also involved in those determinations.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm reading this correctly.
So then it just reverts back to the commission. So if there is something of a more administrative, getting an answer that we can't get through the normal communication channels, then it's 3 commissioners that have to do that.
At a public hearing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just doing that at a public meeting is a little clunky. And again,
Oh, wait, so now you took it a step further. So
She's still, I think you're still using the sort of org chart scenario. I mean, to be honest, in the org chart, I mean, Sean, like, yeah.
but even that, and the fact is, again, no one communicated back to me, and I was once someone raised the issue about the pictures and gave me an explanation, I said, fine. But when I got the answer, go on the controller's website, find it yourself. That is unacceptable. And so this is the kind of stuff that, how do we, when I
But
communicate.
did you go back to Sean at that point? Because I'm just curious, like, 'cause this is so administrative.
Well, then he said, go talk to Justin. So I did. And then Justin, walked me through why that. But again, this was raised 3 months ago. And I asked for it repeatedly and I said, do I have to put this on the meeting agenda? And I don't want to do that because it's embarrassing. But I could sit and do that every meeting and raise a number of different issues. But then, you think you look silly with this, we're going to look even sillier.
Yeah.
So.
But, and I think you have 2 outlet valves when it comes to frustration with that, right? It's either you're not helping me out, I'm going to put it on the agenda so we can all hear about it. Or it becomes a performance issue, which hopefully we direct or give some input to the executive director's evaluation of that individual or person or whatever. I think what this is speaking to is, and I I kind of have an example of this, you know, from gaming when news blurb hits. This speaks, I think, more to our investigative role, our ability to direct staff to do an investigation, directs us to how we would sit in hearing of that license or that suitability. That's why I think this got copied and pasted from gaming, which is more to us having an active role in saying, this smells bad, go investigate it.
But
Here's
you
all
don't
time.
need the full rigmarole of a.
No, I don't think so.
And the value of that too, to Commissioner Stebbins' example, is in the context of an investigation, for instance, you may not want to make that public at an early phase. Instead, it could be the two commissioners, or I think through the chair and one other commissioner, indicate begin or conduct an investigation, produce a report that then allows the commission to make a determination or decision. So there might be a circumstance where you don't want to ask, because I think the commission still reserves that authority at any public meeting to say, I'm asking for an investigation into this. But in some instances, you don't want to reveal that investigation too.
Okay.
Right. So the proposal was still to add at footnote 4, it says H to add and I. Is that-
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yep, thanks.
All right, so far the changes to this section are moving K to become the new B, and adding the footnote and removing G because it was repetitive.
Okay, what about moving C to B, Chair? Because that's the first main priority of the chair, no? Sets the agenda for public meeting to occur in normal course of commission activities after obtaining input from other commissioners. Like, that's the first. I mean, if you want to kind of put them in order of like importance, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
C.
can I tell you, for the purposes of this document, I think that establishing a collaborative working relationship between the administrator and the chair is probably the most important thing that can come out of this whole process. You know, setting the agenda is sort of de minimis because 3 people can set, you know what I mean? It's, you know, so I think that works cooperatively with the executive director is sort of appropriate in the second one. Because I think that to me says something, but again, I'm agnostic as to where one fits. I just thought it was a good recommendation, but.
C and K both say agenda setting too. You read them both. K says agenda setting.
Well, one is about working with the ED to do it, and the other one is about the individual.
Yeah.
Where does the footnote, where are we putting I? I mean, I'm.
Sure, in A has the footnote number 4,
Right.
and the footnote is currently
Well,
section 76H, and we would say Fitch and I.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Madam Chair, do you think K, which I guess is becoming B, is that inclusive enough of the myriad of things that require collaboration? Or should there be some language in there about including but not limited to, or, because I think if you limit it, again, future iterations can be, we'll collaborate on these delineated things, but nothing else. There's risk there.
Yeah,
I think to your point, there should be a spirit of collaboration.
Yep. I agree, including but not limited to.
So works cooperatively with the executive director on including but not limited to policy matters, et cetera.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other proposals for the section on roles and responsibilities of the commission chair?
I'm good.
Okay, so we've got, again, I'm just going to repeat the changes. K becomes the new B with the addition of the language including but not limited to. A includes now in the footnote and I, and G is removed. Any dissent on agreeing to a tentative agreement on this section?
I have none.
Okay. All right, moving on. The commission treasurer. Take a minute to look at number 3, which is on pages 3, 4, and 5.
Had a question on two.
On the chair section?
On the chair section.
Not, I agree with everything in this section, but for J, I was wondering if, I'm just thinking out loud here, because commissioners also sort of participate on committees and testify, so do we need to replicate that language with commissioners? Is that already sort of understood?
Do we have that under government? We might have
I
that.
argue that that needs to be removed. You don't want the legislative and executive branch outreach.
Yeah, I think that's where that is, that it goes in.
I'll just I'll be mindful of that. I just want to make sure.
I did see that, but I thought it was, legislative, commission to discuss. Yeah. Individual commissioners and may engage in legislative and or executive branch outreach. So maybe testimony, you know what I mean? You know, if outreach on that, that's page 13, if that doesn't include what you are seeking.
I really haven't gotten there yet, but I will argue that that entire section should probably be removed from this. I feel like that's where we got granular, but I don't want
The
to.
legislative outreach section. Because there's already a policy.
Okay.
Okay.
Um,
So what I hear you, I think, saying is that J should be in the chair's roles and responsibilities, but the question is, should it be somewhere for the other commissioners as well?
yes. Yes. But where?
So should it go in roles and responsibilities? Just mirror that as an H? Or, oh, well, no, we have to go through the sections.
Is that under maybe G on page 3?
Public officials. Oh, yeah, that's a good spot.
So Romanet 3.
Maybe run at 3 under G?
Okay.
So you're talking about lifting language from, looks like number 7 on page 13, and dropping it into G?
No, the proposal is to, on page 4, under Commission Chair, J, to put that in commissioner roles. Just a little history on that. That started out as Ways and Means Committee. And then people said, wait, but the chair should be able to testify before all legislative and regulatory committees. If we put that in the commissioners, then the chair is also one of the commissioners, so it just becomes repetitive. And the question is, does it stay with the chair or does it just go into?
Well,
the
but
general
I
commissioner?
think into 3, I think to clarify the Ways and Means testimony, because seeing the confusion that we've had this year, I think that leaving it there, but I think with G, I think that you just add in, you know, in Romanet 3, as public officials, notwithstanding the commissioners share expertise, contribute to public awareness, you know, and may advocate for policies and testify, advocate for policies and advocate for policies and testify in front of the legislature,
Before legislative and regulatory committees.
Yeah.
I think that's.
legislative and regulatory.
I like that too, because there is some language here that's specific for you, like in support of the commission, that's kind of goes hand in hand with being the spokesperson, and then with the executive director is something that's unique to the chair
Mhm.
also.
Yeah, I mean, the Ways and Means thing is like a one-time thing,
Okay, so let me see if I follow. So we're putting on page 3, G Romanet 3, may advocate for policies and testify before legislative and regulatory committees.
Regarding, I think we need to say official commission business, because if any one of us wants to go and testify on the speed limit, any of us can testify on the speed limit as long as we're saying, I'm testifying in my own behalf. But this is, we are all empowered to do so, but, we need to make sure that we're just,
Okay, got that. And then J changes to Ways and Means Committee.
No, that's not on here.
No, that's what she's saying to change, because the chair is technically also a commissioner. So if that's something that the commissioner is able to do, then something that's specific to the chair is about the Ways and Means Committee, right?
yeah, I think so.
But the ways and me, I mean, I'm a little lost right now because we're going from page 3 to 4
Okay,
to.
so let me clarify. So on page 3, which is the roles and responsibilities of the commissioners, at G, we're going to add a Romanet 3 that will say, may advocate for policies and testify before legislative and regulatory committees regarding official commission business. Okay, now we're going back to the commission chair on page 4, and where J now says testifies before legislative and regulatory committees, we're going to change that to say testifies before Ways and Means Committee in support of the commission with the executive director.
Not everything else though?
Because as a chair, as a commissioner, that covers.
Got it.
Because we say the commission including the chair.
Are there any other specific stuff? that we're not thinking of?
That's like for the chair, that's unique to her position.
So are we done with that and going on to the treasurer now?
I think so.
Yeah, that's my only
Yeah,
comment.
Okay,
all right.
all right.
Good.
Okay, treasurer. Anything on treasurer?
What number in statute is treasurer? Because I see secretary.
So it's,
Or
There's-
Romanet.
if you look at the footnote where it says the commission treasurer is elected by the commissioners, and then it has a 7. So footnote 7 is the treasurer. So it's section 76G.
Chair, we still had that outstanding thing in this one with the.
Yeah, hold on just one second. So at it's at the bottom of the first page there.
I know, I just don't see
In
All
what
it
was handed out
says
here.
a secretary. G,
It's, the treasurer is someplace else too. And Sean.
that's what,
Sean.
that's what I, because, right.
There's references in J as well, relative to signing off on,
Yes, that's what I.
Yeah, and this is
Right,
where we need. to-
funds.
Yeah, so just.
J.
So the footnote should say G and J. Okay.
Yeah, so getting into the heart, getting into the heart of that under J, it says, no funds shall be transferred by the commission without the approval of the commission and the signatures of the CFO and accounting officer and the treasurer.
So that reads differently in governance then. So if you read. It says reviews and approves monthly expenditures.
Yeah, I almost think we need to take from this statute.
Yes.
Because it's,
It sounds like you're actually approving the monthly expenditures.
Without the approval of the commission. See,
Yeah.
like the commission No funds shall be transferred by the commission without the approval of the commission. The way this reads, it's just the treasurer approves it.
No, it should be the signature, the requirement of the signatures of the
Yeah.
CFO and treasurer.
So is reviews and approves changed to
And the
reviews and
signatures of the
assigns, or is it signs?
CFAO and the treasurer. So, yeah.
So is it,
So really, the commission approves it. The
so
treasurer
so
is the
I just
signatory.
want you to see that, look at C, it says in close collaboration with the chief financial and accounting officer. And then the Romanettes are under that.
Yes,
So Romanet two
Two.
would be,
Reviews and approves.
no,
It's transfers.
Oh, you're saying that the approval.
where the approval.
He's a signatory.
so
She's the governor's
serves
counsel.
as serves as signatory for.
Where the approval.
So it's Romanet 2 that you're saying needs to
Yeah.
have.
You're saying for it to match the language.
Yeah.
Needs to be rewritten.
So it would say serves as signatory for monthly expenditures.
Yeah.
Is that right?
But it's speaking of transfers.
We don't,
No funds can be transferred without the approval of the commission and the signatures of the CFAO.
John, you want
and
to
the
break down the
treasurer.
operations of
do
it?
we vote?
Yeah. Sorry?
Do we vote on this every month?
No, 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 no.
What I'm
Sean, do you
saying-
want to break down the operations? Because you, me, Alyssa, and the CFO met on this.
Yeah, I can try. I think some of this language in the statute doesn't square with the comptroller's processes as well, which require there to be a designated, essentially, whether it be a CFO or someone that can actually approve payments in the state's, I think it's MARS accounting system, MMARS. So that's how basically our vendors get paid, all of our payroll gets run. And we don't do that on a monthly basis as well, so that could be an issue. So I
What
think
can be
this
the
is,
issue that the commission doesn't vote on a regular basis?
right, so I think things get sort of run on at least like payroll, for instance, is a bi-weekly basis. So how we manage that is right now, it's a combination of finance and HR that run our payroll. But then when we get invoices, for instance, there's some companies, actually a lot of our vendors give us a prompt pay discount. So if we pay within, I think, 30 days versus 90 days or something, we'll get a percentage off of the overall price or bill. But it's all compliant with a combination of primarily the comptroller's office. I don't think we have any interaction, or limited interaction with Treasury. It's really the compliance on the comptroller side. So, and I think this was something we've built with, at the time, it was Jeff Shapiro, who's now the Inspector General, but he was the first deputy comptroller, and our systems are built that way, or through that formal process. So I'd be curious if there's thoughts on what we could do differently. But actually, recently with Commissioner Camargo's input, built in this monthly approval of the actual expenditures as well. It was based on these conversations.
So what's the appropriate language for Romanet 2 on page 5? It currently says reviews and approves. And people are saying the statute says serves as signatory for.
Should we put that, serves as signatory?
I think anytime you can, this speaks to the earlier discussion we had about getting back to the statute. Nothing in here should limit the role of any one individual or the commission itself. So the more you can pull directly from the statute, I think that makes sense.
So is it serves as signatory for the transfer of monthly expenditures? Is that the,
Or you can say monthly. I don't know if do you need to say transfer? Or do we need to say transfer?
We don't have
Because
to
it's in the
say
statute.
okay.
But are we talking about the same thing? We talking about monthly expenditures versus I want to move money from this line item into another line item?
That's not good.
Good point, because in statute.
I think
it's
we're missing.
transfer.
I think we're missing that language, the transfer piece. The approval piece is fine if that's the
When we say
direction.
transfer, well, I'm just saying, define transfer.
Yeah.
Every time you
I
say
thought,
that.
I mean, we have the authority to transfer from line item to line item?
I think it transferred means pays.
Yeah.
That's how I'm interpreting it.
Care funds shall be transferred without the approval
Yeah,
of.
because I don't think we have the authority, and frankly, if we're going from line item to line item.
Then we could fill public awareness if we were doing that.
Oh, Kim, shut up.
We could fill it up. So serves as signatory for monthly expenditures. Leave it at that. Okay.
Excuse me for being so rude.
All right. Anything else on treasurer? Okay.
We didn't put it, that language that we were troubled by is not here.
It's not there.
We're not gonna add it.
The state comptroller.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just, I just think that
Too much.
we're not asking for people to be financial experts here, and I wouldn't want to put that. Okay,
Okay.
okay, good.
So I've got two changes to this section. One is to, on the footnote number 7, it says section 76, and it would say and J, G and J. So the addition is and J at footnote 7. And Romanet 2 on page 5, to remove reviews and approves and change that for serves as signatory for. Anything else on the treasurer section?
Where's the chair, and you and I, we all went back and forth on this and we talked about it a little bit earlier, but where's the prepares the treasurer for the ways and means you were open to?
In
says
support of their
in
in support of their testimony, the chair and executive director will work with the treasurer, CFO, and Department of Government Affairs and Policy.
So I just want to, I guess you heard me earlier, I won't repeat myself, but I think we should add a third person, an option third person, whether it's, a part of leadership team, whatever we decide, whatever Sean decides, the chair decides, or another commissioner. I think there should be a third person there.
But where, that comes up in a different section, doesn't that? That would,
There's a specific way the means language, right?
yeah, because this is,
I know, but I thought we had it, let me see.
Where are we? Where are you looking? I'm sorry.
I'm looking at page 5.
yeah, I can't tell.
Can I tell you, I think that this would be, we'll find some language at the designation of the chair, but I just don't think that I'm just telling you, having now sat through on the receiving end for 6 hours, it's,
But I think it's the option. It wasn't funny, but I think.
I
it's
know
the
it's not fun. I was trying to say that before, like it's terrible.
but I think that if the chair determines that it's appropriate, then the chair can designate that work.
Yeah, but I also think it's not, it won't, that's you now in your mentality. The next chairperson may not have the same mentality, so I think it's the option to have it.
But there's always that option to have it.
So let me just ask you how you feel about this.
Not really.
In J, under the chair's roles and responsibilities on page 4, we now have, it says testifies before Ways and Means Committee in support of the commission and executive director. If you like, we can add and may designate another.
Additional participants.
Is that okay?
Does that sound okay?
Huh.
I think that the point is, when you go to the Ways and Means hearing, there's 10 minutes. And trying to divide it up 3 ways is clunky. And you saw like for the Secretary of Economic Affairs, 3 people were there and you were given the option to come and sit at the table in case there were any questions directed that you alone could answer. But you didn't want to do that. And when you saw.
Well, no, I didn't want to do it because Sean had already made the decision and you.
I would
that
really
whole
rather
the whole
not rehash
situation,
this.
so,
I
I
would
mean-
really rather not
Yeah,
rehash
no,
this.
we're not gonna rehash it.
I know, but
yeah.
I'm just asking, is it acceptable to add the language at J under the commission chair's roles and responsibilities? Testifies before Ways and Means Committee in support of the commission and with the executive director and may designate additional participants. Is
The
that
only reason,
acceptable?
I think it's fair, and the only reason is, and I want to use me as an example, even though I am the example. It's not about me. It's about that, I think in this thing, even though it was 6 hours and you guys had to wait and there's 10 minutes, I think if we were more strategic and more intentional and there was, you can't just ask me 5 minutes, 10 minutes before, hey, do you want to come join us after it was a no, which is okay. But it could have been something strategic, and intentional, and 3 people could be there, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. even if it's window dressing and whatnot, I mean,
And again,
you know,
a
we think
strategic
about-
decision, this does not exclude that strategic decision, and there was a strategic decision made to keep it
Correct.
to two.
correct.
And so we can.
I know, but I don't want you just saying right
Yeah.
now that I said no when I was asked
Okay, all
20
right,
minutes
I
before.
really have to.
And the decision was already made, and it was overwritten by
Yes.
staff,
I-
so.
I got the floor, okay?
I don't know, but
I just want to ask if you
I
guys
can
can
what you
take
say.
it, you can take it outside.
We'll take it outside.
yeah, we'll take it outside. It's just misinformation, Shannon.
Okay, thank you. I just have a question. Should Jay Reed testifies for the annual General Appropriations Act? Should we use the same language in D?
Yes, that was one of my.
Yeah, that was, yes.
All right.
Want to make sure we have the right language.
And I think for future purposes, I think any commissioner who wants to attend and be there should be there.
I have another comment though, because that is something that's sort of, it's a collaborative, effort between the GD and the chair. So I think the decision for additional perspective should fall with both of you.
Mhm.
Do you understand what I mean? Instead of it just being sort of the chair making the decision, if you, I'll throw it out there.
It was, I mean, that's exactly how it,
I don't mean this here. I'm just talking about like for the
No, no,
future.
no,
If there's
I
something that
agree.
comes up,
absolutely.
Roy's like, don't get, Commissioner Roy's like, don't get into.
no, I don't even wanna.
No, the question is,
Yeah, that's the
we just added, I may designate additional participants. Is it in consultation with the executive director?
Sure.
Okay.
This stuff is annoying, but it's very important because it causes a lot of tension. It caused a lot of tension within the process.
Well, that's not why I
because
was-
We're seeing go.
I was saying that for a
I
different
know.
reason, because
Yeah.
it all depends on the appetite at the Hill, like, at the Hill,
Yes.
at Beacon Hill. You know, if there's something that is, if social equity is the conversation there, then you guys might want to pull
Public
in
health.
somebody.
The
Yeah,
thing could have
so-
been public health. It would have been great to have a public health seat there. You know what I mean? So
Okay, anything else on
Yeah.
treasurer?
I have a question.
Yes,
Romanet number 1,
okay.
wait for everybody to get there.
Are we on
Page
secretary?
five.
We're on treasurer.
Treasurer.
Okay. Treasurer participates in budget planning meetings with the budget director and executive director to develop the budget. My question is, it informs the commissioners of the proposed budget. So historically, it's been May sends out the budget and Sean does the presentation at the public meeting. So Commissioner Camargo, do you, like, so without violating open meeting law, because if you inform all of us, that could potentially violate open meeting law, and you haven't informed us, it's
But
been
not,
May.
but not an open meeting.
No.
Oh, okay.
What I'm saying is,
the
it's been
presentation
May,
happened last week.
sending the emails, it's been Sean doing the presentation. Do you want, I'm asking you how you interpret that, and where do you see that?
Yeah.
Because
I-
you haven't, you haven't been the one informing us.
That's right. I think because this is newly added to the process, this wasn't here before. I'm not gonna be here next year. I don't know what you guys think for, this role itself, so I don't think it's about me. This is new language, but I think that's also the CFO's job.
Right.
You know what I mean, in terms of,
Informing us.
informing you guys, and I think how the budget process has gone here, I think we've all seen it. It's progress. So I don't know, I think this is a conversation for everybody.
Well, you have the prerogative to do a treasurer's report.
Yeah.
If you wanted.
Yeah, you've told me that before. I
Right,
remember.
Right, it's in here, it's literally in here.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to, do we keep that? It forms the, like, is that a monthly responsibility for you to inform us as commissioners of the proposed budget? Or
I
quarterly,
would-
year?
I think not me, honestly, in terms of, I'm thinking of the larger position and the CFO. I think how we have it, I think makes sense.
But can I just counter that with?
Yeah.
I think that we don't have a granular enough understanding of how the money's being spent. And I actually think that that would be a responsibility of the treasurer to make sure we understand. Because when I look at that report that we got last month and it says equity is $300,000, that's not what the budget for equity is. And it's like, when I started asking some questions, it wasn't necessary, you know what I mean? It's buried in lots of other places. And Sean even made the comment once that the way we have our, that we're only spending $300,000 on equity. We're spending $750,000 on an ad campaign. We've hired more people. I would like to understand what we're actually spending money
Yeah, but
on.
do you think
And I
that's
think
a-
that that's a
that's
role that treasurer, absolutely, you're
Yeah.
supposed to be the expert on this stuff.
I don't know, I mean, I think that this role, the past couple of years has been a nothing burger, Commissioner Roy's word, which I love.
But this is making it a burger.
No, this is making a Big Mac. So I think that's the conversation, you know? That's the conversation. So I think we can continue to have it. Again, this is not about me. I know I'm sitting here, you guys are looking at each other, but I think it's figuring out what you all want to make, what we all want to make this position at the commission. Because we've talked about it not being a CFO position.
But I just want to call your attention to the Romanettes fall under C. And the first sentence in C is in close collaboration with the chief financial and accounting officer. So all of those Romanettes are the treasurer acting in close collaboration with the CFAO.
Yes, but what I think is,
Right.
see, this is actually what I think the treasurer is supposed to be doing for us.
So let's talk about it. I mean,
Is making
we're
sure
developing
that you get to sign off on the monthly appropriations or the monthly appropriations of funds. But I would also assume that and this is also one of the reasons I'd ask to be in those meetings so that I could get a more granular understanding of how the budget is developed and how,
I mean, that falls a lot with Sean in terms of how the budget has been developed.
Well, I'm just saying, I think that this is a role of the treasurer to be sort of our deeper eyes and ears on something
Yeah.
like this. This is,
I mean, let's develop it, right? We've been developing it. This is stuff that we put in play. We worked on this with this. I think Sean.
can I
had
ask,
the
why do you
conversation.
hesitate? What do you, I'm
No,
I'm
no,
really,
I'm
because you're
not.
pledged serving in the role, so
Yeah,
what, give
I
me
think
pushback.
because-
Why do you think
I
that
think
is?
because one, it's new, so I think we're all still trying to figure it out, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think that the other part of it is that we had talked about it not being a CFO position, right? So,
Right.
but I understand what you're saying in terms of having this role have a little bit more of responsibility or sort of digging a little bit deeper, which I think all of us can. I'm just saying, we gotta be mindful if we're gonna turn this position into something like that, I think we have to be mindful.
But I guess what I'm saying is that-
I also
but
just want to, I just,
last
but
point.
before you make the point, I want you to know that the words say informs the commissioners of the proposed budget. It doesn't say right now
Mhm.
of the monthly expenditure.
But what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
if the treasurer is going to be involved in, preparing the chair and the executive director to testify, it assumes that there is a
Right, right,
greater
right,
depth of
right,
knowledge, and you'd assume that the treasurer
right.
would have a greater depth.
Yeah.
So again, if,
And
I
that's-
just
yeah,
want to
yeah,
hear
yeah.
your pushback, because why, I
I
don't
think it's
think
not
this is-
pushback, I just feel like we had talked about this before in terms of being mindful of the role not being a CFO role. So I'm just kind of treading lightly
Mhm.
on it for future
see, I don't
purposes.
think
So
it's a
don't know.
CFO, I think it's working with us to make sure that your fellow commissioners, you get the benefit of being able to be at these meetings
Sure.
and hear this and the development.
Sure.
And I think it would be helpful to,
We would have to develop a whole new process,
Okay.
not a whole new process.
I'll back off. I thought that her point was appropriate and
No,
frankly,
no,
I thought
I
that,
think it's.
I thought it was
everybody.
something you would say is a good idea.
No, I'm thinking, listen, it's a good idea. What I'm saying is that we have to develop the process for it. This is a new position that was written now and kind of put more into it. I'm here for the next 6, 8 months in terms of this role. I'm just thinking of it past me sitting here right now. It's up to you, it's up to us.
But
So-
this language, I think, does, again, we're balancing granular with high
Yeah.
level. I think this language does open up more opportunities for the treasurer without getting into the, okay, we do this step one, this step two. But I think going back to Commissioner Roy's point, that informs the commissioners of the proposed budget. Somebody could read that as, when should that happen?
Right,
I
right,
always
right, right.
looked at that as participate in the budget planning meetings with the budget director, executive director to develop the budget and help present the annual budget to the commission.
which is kind of like what we've done
Yeah,
the last few
can't
months.
wordsmith
What
it.
informs the commissioners of the proposed budget?
Right, I'm gonna look back at her, and I'm gonna ask her, because she raised it, and that's why I'm
Yeah.
looking at her.
Yeah, I know.
So-
So, one can say, oh, the treasurer's derelict in that duty. She has not informed us of the
Yeah, yeah.
proposed
Yeah,
budget.
yeah,
I
that's
don't
fair.
want that.
That's fair.
So do we say may inform the commissioners of the, or what was the language you?
Oh, then I'm missing what you were saying totally. So we've gone all around and I'm missing it.
Yeah, no, I look at numerat one.
Romanet.
Romanet.
Numerat.
Numerat, by the way, is a
Numerats,
much better word.
alphabet, whatever. I look at that as more pulling that annual budget together, presenting that budget for final commission approval. I'm just trying to take out that informs the commission language because it
Well, if
sounds.
you did, honestly, Commissioner, Camargo, if you did, that would be opportunity to your point to say, well, why are we spending? Like, if we had that conversation, probably,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
why are we spending, $20,000 on this?
Sure.
Or why are we, then we could have, if you
Yeah.
did do that,
But don't you guys think that's more of a CFO's?
Well,
That's
yes,
what I'm saying.
can I ask,
That's why-
what do you do with the monthly meetings? I'm sure, what happens?
At the public meetings?
No, at the monthly meetings or whatever.
Off of the budget.
So we've been, I mean, I said this to you guys last time before, we have conversations depending what month it is. We review the stuff that Adriana may send, sort of the monthly stuff. I go through the line item like everybody I think does as well. We talk about what's coming up next, what's on the radar. The parking situation was something that we talked about, not the SOP, but us getting the mileage reimbursement, which Commissioner Roy and I participated in that. For a couple of months, we've spent time on this. We've put together, so I think I'm gonna say the last 9 months to 12 months has been sort of putting this together.
Putting what together?
This process together. This process together. So for the first year, there was not much. I was learning the process.
Commissioner Stebbins, what was your
Because
proposed
before,
change?
I'm sorry, before me, there was not anything going on.
So under one, participates in budget planning meetings with the budget director and executive director to develop the annual budget and assist with presenting that budget proposal before the commission. It hopefully moves away from that
Yeah.
clunky secretive language, because informs.
I mean, and I talked to the treasurer of the gaming commission as well, but I don't know if you have some perspective on it, because I feel like that's
What do they do?
This is the-
To a secretary. I am gonna start. I'm sorry. No, we did have a sidebar. Sorry.
But could I get a response to, Professor?
Yeah.
Commissioner Stebbins.
Does look like a
So the proposal was that Romanet one would read, participates in budget planning meetings with the budget director and executive director to develop the annual budget and assists with presenting the budget proposal to the commissioners.
Comfortable with that, treasurer?
I mean, it's up to y'all.
And it's with the
Like, it's all-
CFO.
No, but I'm just saying, I mean, I think people have respected, like, it seems like you're interested in sort of trying to elevate the role.
Well,
and
yeah,
it
'cause I
shouldn't just
got-
be for one hearing, it should be for all year. And I just
Right.
think that it's kind of trying to be responsive to what it sounds like you want, so.
Well, but I think she's asking what you have to take Nerys out of it.
No, but I'm just saying, I had heard her say, I guess I
Finish your
misinterpreted
comment.
what I thought
Commissioner
she was
Gonzalez,
saying.
because-
I just feel like the way I'm reading this is what would we like our treasurer to do.
Yes.
And this isn't even we're developing this.
Yeah.
This isn't an action yet. We
Yeah.
haven't agreed, like, this is not something that's set.
So then I think this is sufficient. I think that I misinterpreted some of what I had heard Commissioner Margot say about sort of elevating that role, not creating a fiduciary responsibility. I wanted to make sure that language was there,
Yeah.
that didn't create,
That's right.
but that I see the treasurer's role is that extra pair of eyes to kind of dig a little bit deeper
I see
so that we're,
I see that.
protected. That's
Right.
how I
And I
see it.
agree with that. This hasn't happened. So this is something we want to happen.
That's what we're
It's
saying.
something
That's
we
what I'm
want to
saying,
happen.
is like,
Right,
it's something
something
we
that
want
we
to
want
happen.
to see
Question
happen.
is,
It
what
doesn't
do
matter.
you want?
That
Not
is
what
the question.
Maurice.
It's not what
Commissioner
Camargo
Camargo
wants. That's my point. It's not
What do
me.
you as a
Yeah.
board want?
And the only
to
reason
happen?
is that, because this is new. I hear what you're saying, Commissioner Roy. Like,
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. And then the same thing with the secretary role. You're
Right.
gonna develop a secretary report. It hasn't happened in the past. Bruce, you didn't do it either, right? So it's okay. We're now redeveloping these positions.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying is everything, what I've done has been sort of like, make sure that for me in this position, when I saw and read the statute, that there wasn't anything that this position signed
Yeah.
and they were supposed to be transferring, that I did not sleep. And you can talk to Sean, I almost yelled at him because I'm like, what have you guys been what have we been doing with this? Let's put something here. It didn't happen in the beginning. So I think that this is really what us as commissioners want to create these secretary roles and treasurer roles to be.
Meaning we've
Now-
never had the word signature, which is in the statute.
Yeah.
I also want to say something, because I've been getting this feedback from a lot of people about what's been implemented and what hasn't been implemented.
Yeah.
And this is still in process, so there
Yes.
shouldn't be an expectation that anything in this is being implemented now, because it's still in process.
Mm.
So,
But
so I want,
But it's, you've got to, but the
But-
point is that the
but-
statute says
but I
that.
want to go back to
Yeah.
Commissioner Concepcion, who I thought was going to answer the question posed about what do the commissioners want their treasurer to do
Right.
with regard to this?
And I will answer the question. I'm under the same, I feel the same way what I believe the chair, her position of that is being more active. And because we're critiqued on a somewhat consistent basis about our funds, the budget, what's available, I don't want to limit this to on an annual basis. I think it's important to have
Ongoing.
an ongoing basis.
Yes.
And I see the ongoing piece in the rest of the language.
Yeah.
I was looking at, again, two, or wherever, one is that actual building of the proposed annual budget. I think there's other places further down, regular review meetings, option to provide a report, can provide a fiscal impact analysis, monitor the status of the commission's budget request. I think, and I think it extends into the role of the secretary, and what Commissioner Roy has been talking about is we're kind of doubling down on our own accountability.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
to the chair's point
Yeah.
of, we're not just figureheads. We have responsibilities.
Yeah.
Being
Yeah,
true and attesting to the expenditure of public funds is big responsibility. It was different in gaming because we didn't get public funds. We got a check from MGM and we spent it. This is different. So I'm all for building in
Yeah.
more measurements of accountability.
Yeah.
And I think some.
And I'm not
some of
hesitant,
that
I'm not
language-
hesitant, like having been in this role, just kind of making it little by little, like the last couple of, like year, whatever. I would just say, I'm not hesitant to any of that. I think that makes sense because it allows someone on the commission as a commissioner to really go, like you said, a little bit deeper. I think we have to, in collaboration, because I mean, Sean, you said this before. Like the first year that I sort of sat in this, there was like nothing. It was trying to figure out what it was and really building relationships with you guys. The second year, we've sort of developed this, but the treasurer's role has been left out of the budget process until last year. So I think that also has to be very clear that if us as commissioners are going to decide that this becomes, sort of double down how you sort of said, Commissioner Stebbins, that also the executive director's role, not Sean, but understands that it has to be in collaboration. Like the treasurer needs to be at the seat during the whole budget process.
Okay, so I just want to check with you, on C, Romanet 1, and C begins in close collaboration with the chief financial and accounting officer. Participates in budget planning meetings with the budget director and executive director to develop the annual budget and assists with presenting the budget proposal to the commissioners.
Can I-
That was Commissioner Stebbins' language. Is
Yeah.
everyone okay with that?
I am.
Sean, can you just kind of like comment to that? Because I know that we've had a lot of conversation around this from the first year that there was a treasurer to the fifth year to like the last year and a half, 2 years.
I'm sorry, I don't want to go, Susan asked a question, I just
Yes.
want
Oh,
to answer
sorry.
before I forget it. Now, the purpose of saying assist was, I went to the.
Because it's with the chief financial accounting officer. So it's that the treasurer would assist with that presentation. It seemed to me what I was hearing, people had concerns about the word informs. And so I understand Commissioner Stebbins' proposal was to clarify, instead of informs the commissioner, to say would assist in presenting the budget proposal to the commissioners
What does that mean?
Well,
at a public meeting, I'm
I
assuming.
think it's fair to you. And the reason I say this, because as the secretary, if I had to inform you guys of something, I would want legal with me to do it. I wouldn't want to be on the hot seat alone to answer every, I wouldn't know how to answer every
Yeah,
question.
yeah, of course.
It's not fair to you.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
shouldn't be able to answer
To
every
anybody in the
budget
world.
question on your own. You're on the hot seat. We're gonna have a, you know us, we're gonna have a million questions
Yeah, yeah.
about the budget. It's
Yeah.
not fair to you.
Yeah.
Not fair to me.
Yeah.
Without legal,
Yeah.
we do a presentation. So
Yeah.
that's to protect whoever the treasurer is.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
No, no,
and
that makes sense.
Commissioner Concepcion, did you have
I
a
didn't
question?
disagree to that.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That answered it. I just
You're
was
okay.
curious
Yeah.
about that.
Okay,
No, I-
so everyone's okay with that change, so I can.
All right, now,
That's
Commissioner
okay.
Camargo.
No, I mean, I think we should wait for the chair to come back, but I think that Sean, there's also a part of this because it is now in progress, this treasurer role. I think that Sean is silent, so I wanted to sort of really give a perspective on this because this is sort of a new role with, not a new role, but we've created more responsibilities for it than what it has ever had. And how that rubs with, the CFO team and the budgeting team and the executive director's role to make sure it all makes sense. That's my hesitation.
Sean, did you want to respond?
Yeah, I promise you, I'm not ignoring the conversation. I'm sometimes just waiting for like a pregnant pause to jump in. I don't want to just be rude or sort of jump over anybody. So thank you. I guess
Sean,
Commissioner
I'm sorry
Concepcion.
Sean, I'm trying to interrupt
See?
you, but
See?
I know, pregnant pause, the chair's out of the room, so I think she needs to hear this, is my point.
Okay,
So
so
long.
shut up.
Yeah, long pregnant pause.
Right, very long. Well, but I think Commissioner Concepcion, just quickly to your question, to your point on the assist part too, is I think that's where the budget is both technical and policy.
Yeah.
And for me, I view the treasurer's role as really informing that, like, where are we going? What are we spending our money on? But then the execution and the sort of technical aspects of that, I think, do fall to the CFAO and budget director. And that's where the marriage happens
Yeah.
really nicely.
Right.
So what's your, how do you feel about the assist versus informs language?
I think assist works really well because I think that implies cooperation and collaboration. For instance, I think if there was one of the goals of the commission was to, bolster something, I think the treasurer can kind of carry that spirit into the budget. Like, we should invest heavily here, but then the technical expertise of put it in this account and develop this procurement process, that's where I think the CFAO, budget director, COO, me, that's our job. But are we meeting that objective? I think is really the treasurer's input into the process as well. I think that's where, again, it's sort of a marriage in a lot of ways. Yeah, so just on the budget development process, I think one of the things that I don't want to muck stuff up anymore, but in like the budget planning meetings, I think can leave a lot to interpretation. And I guess I want to ask this question to the commission, maybe Commissioner Camargo through you as the existing treasurer. I would like to see, for instance, the treasurer play a really meaningful role in evaluating the department requests that come in. Because I think the importance of that for me is I'm often in a difficult position sometimes of saying no, or maybe it's a series of questions of let's sort of marry priorities, or sometimes departments can get isolated in their own island or lane. And now it becomes a competing. Well, if I get 2 FTEs and someone else got 4, I didn't get what I asked for. And where departments can sometimes then appeal to commissioners, I think having the treasurer there as a bit of a buffer can be helpful, but also for someone at the commission level with a perspective, an informed perspective of that process could be valuable when it ultimately gets to the commission of, we wrestled with this. We have we don't think it's realistic to ask for a 10% increase, but we settled at 6. But here's where we shaved. And sometimes that accountability, it still will and should fall to the executive director and CFAO, but I think having a commissioner there would be helpful and insightful as ambassador, but also just as another ear to lend to the process. So in the budget planning meetings, I think just being articulate there about all of them. And it's not just with commissioners, because I also try to meet with every commissioner probably more than once in the budget process of what are your priorities? Here's what we're planning. Does this meet with your priorities? So it's iterative, but it's also sometimes contentious too, or maybe not contentious, but it can be sensitive. So
Can I say I meant that 10 times? Because I think that this is part of the role that the commissioners can play in helping you gain greater buy-in from your team. Because this is the problem that I see, is that individual fiefdoms during COVID have grown up behind a screen, and everyone has their, we gotta have this, we gotta have that. And I think it's hard for you, especially given the fact that we still have a culture that's behind a screen, to be able to say no to things. And this is where I think that the treasurer can do.
We're not saying that you can't do your job as a.
No,
leader.
I'm not,
We're
I'm not
just
saying,
saying
Agreed.
that.
I'm not saying that, but he just said
Yeah,
that
yeah.
this is difficult for
No, I
you
know.
to say no. And I think that this needs to be because I have said,
But that's also a problem, right? Like, he is the executive director. He should be okay with saying no, and I know he does try, but
it's,
I know. But
I'm
this
gonna,
is-
I think there was a
Yeah.
proposal.
yeah,
by
I
Sean
agree, Sean, thank you.
To add another Romanet that would say, reviews department resource requests in collaboration with the executive director. Is that the proposal?
I like that.
Reviews department resource requests in collaboration with the executive director.
And Sean, tell me the execution of that.
Yes, is everyone good with that?
Well, let him, he seems to.
yeah, so Commissioner Camargo, I think it could be frankly as simple as,
Honestly.
yeah, no, I think it's as simple as a sit down conversation. What's your take? How do you feel about this? And I would also do it. I think the way the language sounds, I don't think it's with the departments though. I think it's the treasurer and the executive director. And I think maybe with the discretion between the two of us of adding the CFAO or someone else, but I think at the very least, the two of us. And what do you think about this? And it might be that from there, we determine we've got to go get more clarity. I don't understand this request enough. This isn't really a struggle. It's more of just the history is the department requests come in from each department. Therefore, departments may not talk to each other. And so that's where some of the collaboration can be forced is if Yao is looking to add 25 investigators, and then I push back and say we can probably afford to add 15 next fiscal year, but I really want to see some workforce planning. So work with HR and work with operations to put out a procurement on how do you build this? How do you scale alongside? Well, Yao's going to hear, and this, I'm not trying to single him out or pick on anybody, but Yao's going to hear I got 9 less than I asked for.
Mhm.
And then that becomes an appeal to commissioners, or it becomes a why is Sean saying no, or but in reality, I'm saying yes, but. And also, frankly, to be honest, how often, how quickly can we hire is another concern of mine. Is that's why we ask our departments to build out 2 fiscal years ahead of where can you realistically get. So yeah, I think that makes sense as Susan described it, and that's again a completely honest answer.
Commissioner Roy?
So 2 questions. The unspent funds, should the treasurer provide the commission an update or be part of the process? Like last meeting, you said we're gonna have unspent funds instead of reverting them back to the legislature. Should the treasurer provide working consultation with the ED and the CFAO? How do we reinvest in this agency so we're not reverting funds for unspent funds? Because I think you and I talked about that last year, right?
And we talked about that here in this meeting at the
Yeah.
beginning stages.
So I don't,
Whose
that's silent,
responsibility is that?
that's silent here. And number 2 is, we had 2 amendments filed. Dan Donahue filed one and Representative Michael Soter to help fill in the gaps for the budget. Now, is that something the chair should be thanking, the treasurer should be thanking publicly? Like where, is there a role for the treasurer? Did you know about those amendments?
You're saying thanking them?
We want to thank Representative Donahue, I don't know, is there a role?
Are you saying like to inform us?
Yes, is there a role, did you know about those amendments, number 1? Number 2, is that any role in the treasurer around that? I don't know.
Government Affairs. I just want to say something about the unspent monies.
Yeah.
That had been in our budget section, and then we took all that out to say it would be in an SOP. So that's why you're not seeing it here. That was in the budget section. So it's not, and that will be in a budget SOP in terms of what to do to track those monies. We had that very granular.
Is there utility, or does that speak a little bit Romanet 3, which is the, such as rate of spending, unplanned costs? Does that capture some of that?
I think so. My initial thoughts and my comments, to you, Bruce, earlier when I was asking you, well, when I was talking about how I envision the treasurer role and reporting more to the commission, that's what I had in mind. So Romanet 1, I picture that as being sort of regular budget planning meetings so that there's a consistent amount of communication. And we know when we're approaching, a period where we have excess funds that are in danger of being reverted back. So that sort of comes organically from having those conversations. And I think would be a conversation brought to the commission.
So I think that's 3, because I think 1 is about planning for the next year's budget. And Romanet 3, as Sean just pointed out, conducts regular review meetings, including with the executive director, CFAO, COO, budget director, and appropriate staff to discuss budget execution, revenues, and fiscal issues such as rate of spending or any unplanned costs.
You're right, both of you.
It doesn't inform us.
Yeah, I think while we're developing this too, yeah, I think it's all in here. I think what we have to do, myself, Sean, if any other commissioner wants to be part of this, is try to figure out a actual plan for this sort of new role and stuff that we're talking about. We're doing this stuff right now. But I think what I'm hearing my fellow commissioners talk about is a more active participation when it comes to a treasurer's role.
I think it's the report back element.
Yeah.
So that Romanet 3 is missing that
Yeah.
report back.
But I think even execution wise, because for me, it's like I'm in the meetings, we're having the conversation, which is what you guys saw 2 weeks ago at the public meeting, was May presenting. So I've sat through meetings with them, we've gone through it, so I think it's, if you vocally want to hear and see a treasurer sort of do that themselves, then we're gonna have to sort of marry those two so that, it's in concert. So I think it's sort of me going back and kind of after we've sort of looked at this, thinking, okay, how does this role now function a little bit more visible? I haven't taken the visible role right now because I've been sort of working behind the scenes with them to sort of get to this where we're at. What I'm hearing you guys say is that this role should be a more active role, a more under the hood role.
What I think it
Yeah.
is protecting the commissioners and making sure that the sort of big picture
Yeah.
is reflected in
Yeah.
the granularity.
So I think we gotta massage that.
And I would say it's also, making sure that the executive director
Yeah.
is supported, because this does get to be testy,
And also that the treasurer's role is supportive because, and Sean's admitted this, it was left out of the process.
I think some of this, and Commissioner Concepcion, this might speak to your concern, is I think it can, from this, then get reduced to SOP in a sufficient way. Now, granted, it's a lot to ask as far as let that play out a little bit. But for instance, if we were careening toward the end of a fiscal year and realized we've got $2 million that we are going to either revert, or we have an opportunity to reappropriate. To me, if I'm going to take funds that are, because it's not lost on me, I feel like I'm bound by a commission vote. If you vote for a budget, I'm bound to execute against that spending plan. If I intend to make adjustments to that spending plan, I should come back to the commission and get your explicit approval for that.
So what if the executive director is not as loyal to the sort of spirit and the letter of the rules or the process? See, we're putting this in place, and this is, that's where I think this protects the commissioners, is to make sure that you're a creature, you've been in there, you get it, but not everybody might.
So
That's where I think the SOP guides or should. because it should be documented and it's auditable, frankly. Our SOPs can be used against us in an audit.
Okay, and I just wanted to know, because I heard Commissioner Roy and Commissioner Concepcion having the same concern. At the end of Romanet 3, do you want to add and provide such information to the commissioners? So it's conducts regular review meetings, to discuss budget execution, revenues, and fiscal issues such as rate of spending and or unplanned costs, and provide such information to the commissioners? Or did I misread?
Well, we have provides information to commissioners on potential fiscal impacts of, but
Right, we have it
Yeah.
on other
Yeah,
things,
on other
but not
things, yeah.
on Romanet 3.
That was what I was thinking, but I do want to ask him, because I haven't been in that
Yeah.
role. Like, what is the reality of that? Does that seem like it's like
It's
a,
not,
there's no, it's not, say that again?
keep finishing. I'm
I
like,
just
it's not,
wanted to
it's
know
not
if that, like,
yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out if
Burdensome.
it's feasible, is what I'm saying.
This is why I think the chair picks up my hesitation, is because I think we're gonna have to sort of, and I think the secretary's role, you guys have been developing and have some specific on this one. I think we're gonna have to pull it out a little bit and kind of massage it in terms of really sitting down with Sean, sitting down with the CFO, myself right now as a treasurer, chair, even yourself, to make it realistic, because it hasn't been part of the bigger process. And I think the other thing I'm thinking too is we should probably think about training for a role like this, because, any person comes in here and Chairman Hoffman's like, hey, can you do this for a year? Hey, can you do this for another 2 years, right? And spend nothing. But I think that, to your, use a diet conversation around that specific language that Christine added, we gotta be careful.
I want there to be heightened sort of
No, I get it.
understanding,
I get
but
it.
not heightened fiduciary responsibility.
Alright, so it sounds like we don't
Right.
make that addition and we leave it to an
Okay.
SOP.
Okay, all right, sounds
Okay,
good.
leave it to an SOP where
Good.
Yeah.
people can think more.
All right.
Anything else on treasurer's role?
No, I want to go back to just the training piece, because I, exactly what you just said, Chair, if that makes sense. But I just want to put it in here somehow, maybe somewhere outside after we
I
implement
understand,
it.
I think that goes in an SOP.
Okay, all right, got
Yeah,
it,
that's fine.
got it.
Okay, anything else on the treasurer's roles and responsibilities?
Can I just ask this though? As city commissioners right now, do you all feel comfortable with what this role could look like after this? Like, is it obvious?
I think it gives a lot of flexibility.
Okay, all right.
Okay, any dissent from a tentative agreement? on
I have
this
none.
section? Okay, let's go to commission secretary. Any questions, comments, concerns, proposals on the commission secretary?
I have none. I would defer to the two current and former secretaries if they have any issues, but I have none. We good to move on?
I mean, it looks like.
Oh, sorry.
Commissioner Roy, is the training stuff in here? Because you've been good at.
Yeah, so with Sabiel, and respect to Sabiel, he's on the line here too. We've been efforting all of this, as you are aware, legal is severely short-staffed right now.
Yeah.
Everything you read there is like in motion on one level or another. And I've been trying to send you friendly reminders.
Yeah.
For all of your training.
that on
One is due, by May 5th, right? You're with the state, right? Your ethics file. So here's your verbal, gentle reminder on
May
that.
1st.
May 1st, I mean, May 1st. Thank you. But like the minutes, it's hard for these guys right now to even get them to be, because they literally are so short-staffed. What I was going to actually propose, if I may, at this time, is once I was supposed to have, and Sabiel, this is no one's fault. You guys are completely short-staffed. But by Monday, I was supposed to have like two sets of 40-page minutes and executive director. They are like barely treading water, these guys right now. So what I was going to propose to once I get the minutes, this is an option. I can send them out to everyone before they go in your meeting book. Or, and say, look at your own sections to make sure that they're accurate and your intent is accurate. Because for me to look through 80 pages and then I might miss your intent or I might miss the accuracy of, so we talked about color coding.
Yeah, can I raise this with Savio, because you and I had talked about this?
Yeah.
Savio, one of the things I suggested to try to streamline, and Bruce and I had sort of offered to help Kim with this, because we know everybody, you know, especially in legal, is under the gun. Is there a way, because I don't understand technology, you showed me that little F thing, that is there a way, but is there a way that you could color code Bruce? His name is, you know what I mean? Bruce is in red, you know what I mean? Or even just the name, because then it's easier for people to just go through and all they're looking for is red. They
Their
can
own
find
intent.
themselves, you know, and then that takes on whomever the secretary is, that takes the burden off of that, you know, and if you want to dispute that, you can dispute it. Does that, do you understand what I'm saying, Sabiel? I don't know if it makes any sense.
But
I'm
that's
trying
that's not gonna be in the charter that you're gonna
No,
color
but
code this.
No, but it's
This is- this
actually
is a
something we gotta get done, and I just want to
operating
quickly ask a
issue.
question.
Or I gotta bring
Yeah.
it up in public meeting, one or the other.
Go ahead, Sabiel.
Hi,
Good to see you.
Sabiel.
Good afternoon. Yeah, Chair, to answer your question, yes, that is definitely completely possible. I will also note that every single line does have the person or the commissioner
Right.
who is speaking. So if it's easier to have it color coded, definitely possible. I would note that this is sort of a different take than we've taken before. So I don't know, like once we do post it on the commission's website, if we want to delete the color coding and just maybe like implement the color coding just for the draft form.
Yeah.
Completely up.
But I don't think the color-coded versions could come back to you, because then you're,
We could just look at our sections.
So,
So that's-
Sabiel,
That it's violating open
Sabiel
meeting law?
and I messaged over the weekend, and Sabiel, that's what I was gonna, remember I said we needed a touch base day, that's what it was about. So, out of fairness to all of you, to have 2 days to look through over 100 pages of minutes and making sure your accuracy and your intent is not possible. So because if you get, by the time you get it in meeting book, it's too late.
Yeah, can I just say this, Commissioner Ward, because I'm looking at the time too.
Yeah.
I would just say, send us 2 recommendations.
I can't, he has to, I'll violate open meeting.
Okay, or maybe the ED can send us recommendations, but
Yeah.
my question that I wanted to ask you was, with some of the training reminders and the stuff that you've been doing, is that in here? Because I think you've been doing a good job at it, so I'm just thinking the secretary
Oh,
after
it
you.
says, what it says here is that,
Number 5, I see.
for B. Number 5.
Yeah, number 5.
Yeah.
5.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I was looking for different language. Yep, that's fine.
Yeah, so I'll work with Sabiel and
Yeah, just
executive director,
send us the
so
best.
we can keep moving.
thank you,
Yes,
appreciate
yeah.
that. I appreciate
But,
that.
okay, it's just now you kind of know that idea, concept
Yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
out there, like.
All right.
And we
Any,
gotta do our own jobs, we can go through our sections.
any other comments on the commission secretary section? Any dissent from achieving a tentative agreement on that section? Okay,
Don't depend on that section. Slight comment on the treasurer section now because of this section.
okay.
I feel like we've got, like, it's a little heavy on the treasurer. That's all. That's just you know, observation that I have is, maybe that's just par for the course. Maybe that's just the reality of the different positions.
What do you
So
think is
maybe think about it, and we're gonna have another meeting, and if you feel like it should lighten up and you can make proposals about what should be deleted, let's do that. Okay? How about executive director? So roles and responsibilities for executive director, it's on page 6 and 7.
I'm exhausted thinking about the executive director position.
Ditto.
Yeah. It's a lot, this position's a lot. this may be too extra and you guys can tell me otherwise. But again, future executive director, I'm just curious if we should add something of works collaboratively with the secretary and treasurer to ensure, that role, the responsibility, or like the access to that role.
I was gonna add with the chair, I was gonna take the same language that we had, the chair's role and put that in.
Because,
Because I think that it's you and I, Sean, or next executive director and the next chair, making sure that there is that collaboration, making sure that that division of labor, I think that that's important. So I think that we're saying the same thing, we're just gonna.
So I missed it, so.
So, under the executive director, commission chair section, works cooperatively with the executive director on policy matters, outreach, internal, external.
Mhm.
You know, this language,
Flip it for the chair.
flip
Just
it.
bring it in, yeah.
Yeah, and then, and then period, and then in that same section, Nerys, maybe it's, further works collaboratively with the secretary and treasurer to ensure they fulfill their required roles, or I don't know, something like that. Yeah. That's good.
Okay.
I don't have anything else here, because I think that as long as that language is there, that's the only language I want to see here.
What do you think?
You good, Sean?
With those, the secretary, treasurer, and the chair elements?
And then your section in general, I don't have,
Anything else on the section?
Yeah, I'm looking at H as far as the delegated authorities, and I'm wondering if we want to mirror the language we chose earlier relative to, I don't know what I would change necessarily, but I just want to make sure it's consistent. So earlier we talked about how the commission may delegate things to the executive director, and I just want to make sure that those two things sync. And in that
And
vein,
also, is delegated a verb or an adjective?
or noun, or pronoun, I don't know.
Oh, that's
I
great.
really-
No, but I mean.
I got,
Well, I'm thinking too here, it's not just policy decisions that are delegated in that vein. So there are some operational elements too. And so I think it's important that that's clear and my authority is either through statute or through delegation.
I would, and the only thing, and again, this is sort of the grammar police, but I think it's clear, it's executes and implements delegated authorities from the commissioners regarding policy and administrative decisions or
That's fair.
whatever.
Yeah.
But again, if you,
What one are you on?
it's just, again, it's the verb versus noun or whatever, but it
5H.
executes and implements
Mhm.
delegated authorities.
That's right.
To executes and implements delegated authorities from the commissioners to fulfill or to something policy decisions,
Yeah, I think you added administrative, which I think is appropriate as well.
administrative and policy decisions, or to fulfill commission administrative and policy decisions.
Executes and implements delegated authorities from the commissioners to fulfill commission administrative and policy decisions.
Say it again. It's
Executes and implements delegated authorities from the commissioners.
commission delegated or commissioner, no, commissioners delegated authority
Executes and implements commissioner delegated authorities
to fulfill administrative and policy decisions. Is that-
Yeah.
is that-
That sounds right.
Okay. Anybody else?
Should I have municipal in it? Because with social consumption coming, some towns are gonna have smoking.
We are now overseeing HCA's, right?
Yeah, so, and we oversee HCA's as well. I'm thinking we need to add municipal, state, and federal law.
Do you agree with that, Sean? Do you hear what she said?
I-
Because we wouldn't look at the HCA's and they would have.
Yeah.
sent it in.
Now granted, that authority is based on state law.
No, and also like the social consumption, like, the way the regs are now about smoking outdoors, and we have to enforce our regulations based on what the municipality says around smoking outdoors, right? So I'm just throwing that in. Do we need to acknowledge that, the municipal aspect of it as well?
That covered under I.
That's what you're asking.
Oh, that's what I'm asking, and do we add municipal, applicable municipal, state, and federal law?
That's the proposal, to add in municipal.
Like, we have to enforce our regulations if it's a no town. We're gonna deny an application because it's in town.
Yeah, but what Sean says is that power is a state law. Do you know what I mean? We're doing it because it's state law. I initially thought, we're not implementing municipal law.
Right.
We are under state law. I thought your way first, under state law, we are overseeing municipal activities, but
But on the social consumption, if some law allows smoking outside and some don't, wouldn't it have to be in respect to municipal law?
State law is what gives the municipalities that discretion, so we would still be enforcing state law.
State law.
It would then just, that state law would cascade, that authority exists because of state law. So upholding it would be consistent with state law.
I thought that way
Okay.
first, but I think he's.
Okay.
All right, anything else on
I
the
don't have
executive
anything else.
director? Any dissent from agreeing to a tentative agreement on that section?
Do we actually, sorry to throw a wrench, Commissioner Roy, is this an appropriate place, do you think, to add in considers and approves all standard operating procedures?
Yes,
Thank you.
yes, thank you for, yes, 1,000 times.
Okay.
You're getting 2 gold stars on this section, Sean.
5 gold stars.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Don't call it a comeback.
Anything else? Tentative agreement, yes?
Yes.
Anyone know? Okay. Public meeting agenda setting. Anything on that? I think we've been over this one quite a few times.
The only question I have would, is the government affairs and policy team always going to do that work?
It's how it functions now, Matt.
Right. But if it's a deputy executive director at some point, or legal counsel, there's somebody else shares that draft, we
Just commission staff generically.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Or do you want to leave this to you as executive director to determine the appropriate staff? That will be part of that agenda setting? Does that make sense,
I should have
Sean?
another thing, just because the government affairs team may have some feelings if they get knocked out here. So it could also say, or other appropriate staff.
Yeah, or appropriate staff.
other
Or
designated
commissions,
staff.
other designated staff. In
I
both
think-
places.
Yeah, I think just designated staff.
Or designated staff, or just say designated staff and.
I think
take-
just designated staff.
So take out government affairs and policy team and just say designated staff.
Are we gonna hurt feelings? And do we? Anyway, all right, I'm good with that.
Everyone good with that?
The only thing is I might want to say staff designated by the executive director. Because you're not saying who's designated.
That's what I'm saying. I think you leave it to Sean.
Sure, that's fair.
Or, and if you don't want to hurt feelings, you can say government affairs and policy team or staff as designated by the executive director. So we leave it up to you to make that determination, unless you don't want that determination. You're gonna determine it anyway.
I think
Right,
our-
yeah. I was just trying to think of this as a durable document. If there's just designated staff at this point, it is government affairs and policy that has been designated, but
Yeah. That's your decision. You decided that.
for, yeah, no, it's just been organically as far as who has capacity, but
Mhm.
I'm sure they would argue they don't have capacity now, but someone has to do it, so, and they're
Mhm.
also attuned to how to do it right now.
Sean, what's your preference for the language?
I think just designated staff, I would leave out government affairs and policy. Then I'm happy to
Stay Designated
that
by the
sort.
executive director?
Yes, sorry, yes, as Commissioner Concepcion suggested, yep,
So it's staff designated by the executive director.
that sounds right.
I just have a question. For the title of it, the public meeting agenda, is that, should we put an S in parentheses because we're talking about possibly having two public meetings in a month? This way we could have two agendas as opposed to the public meeting agenda. I mean,
Each meeting is a public agenda.
okay,
They-
does
they-
this
they- you
cover
don't-
all
yeah.
the bases?
It doesn't-
For
we're
the
not-
second meeting, you don't.
Anytime we have a meeting, we have a public agenda.
Commissioner Roy, I make the note to myself as well, like one a month, second meeting, but I think also we haven't officially talked about a second meeting publicly. We've talked about it. I think we've talked about it individually.
I've talked about it in.
Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, but I'm saying as a commission, we haven't voted on a second meeting.
We don't have to.
Well, doesn't matter. I'm
Yeah.
just saying that we haven't like fully talked about the plan or everything that we're gonna do, but
Mhm.
my point was gonna be that we're talking about a second meeting, but the commission after us doesn't have to have a second meeting. So this is just us sort of
Yeah.
wanting to have second meetings, but so for the purposes of this, I thought about it, but I don't think
Okay.
it needs to be in here. I think every commission decides what they want to do.
But ultimately, again, this is setting the agenda and the chair calls a meeting
Yeah.
or three commissioners. So
Yeah, yeah,
we don't need to put
Exactly.
that
We
in
don't-
writing and
yeah.
we're, you know what I mean?
yeah. But I thought about it for the same reason.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Anything else on this section?
The only other thing I have here, and this is in response to the kind of back and forth that we had at Christmas or before Christmas. Votes should not be taken on items, this is number 3 on top of page 8. Votes should not be taken on items not publicly noticed until the next public meeting. That is a rule, that is an open meeting rule as interpreted by the Attorney General. And it was not clarified to us that there are certain sort of de minimis or ministerial, you know what I mean? There could be. I think votes should not be taken, but Sean, I may ask for your thoughts on this because I do remember that I felt it was the right thing because I felt it was a fairly substantial policy that we were going to vote on, that we not want to raise it without having noticed it, previously. And so we had that extra meeting.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of what would sort of, where's the threshold? And I think that's where there's discretion on behalf of the chair and the body. And also it's, none of it is without risk. So,
Right.
voting on the budget should be noticed, but maybe a voting to, I don't know, celebrate something or like there's something innocuous or innocent enough. So I think the language as it reads, it discourages not noticing it, but it does at least give you that flexibility.
And I'm not a good enough lawyer to sort of understand the full weight of should versus shall. So I'm not going to argue about it, but I just did want
This
to
gives you
raise
flexibility as I read it.
it's an issue. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, and that was exactly what the general counsel changed from shall to should.
Okay.
Anything else on public meeting agenda setting? Any dissent from a tentative agreement on that?
I have no dissent.
I have a question.
Okay.
If the chair is unable to perform, but who sets the agenda?
So what we have is the chair can designate someone in her place,
And when she gets hit by a bus,
then the secretary is
That's to chair the meeting, not set.
No,
the
it's
agenda.
serve as the
Fulfill
chair.
role.
to serve as the chair.
Fulfill the role.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, executive director goals. Questions, comments?
I have no comments on this, Mr. Commissioner. Do you have any? Bruce, do you have any thoughts or additions? Because you're the
She was
mayor.
the professor.
Professor.
In any way.
He does have that sort of like Clark Kent,
Professor.
doesn't he? Like, you know.
Do you need another minute or can we tentatively agree to that section?
Sean, do you have any, you look like you'd like to pipe up?
Yeah, I'm struggling with whether or not to raise this, which means I'm just gonna raise it. Is the timing awkwardness, so I'm really specifically looking at number 4, the approved goals inform commission budget and resource allocations. By the time we're doing a budget, we're 6 months into my goals.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure, let me apologize. By the time we get our budget, we're mid-year of goals. So there's just an awkwardness in timing. Now, our budget build is prior to, so there can be some synergy there. It's just a matter of the
Can you
collision.
suggest language that you think functions better and we will,
Is it, what about future budget and staff resource allocations?
Yeah, or prospective commission budget and staff resource allocations. Yeah, I think that the other thing, which is dramatic, is basically to shift the alignment of timing
I was gonna
of
say
my
fiscal.
evaluation to fiscal
that's
year.
what I'm saying, is
That's
that
what I was gonna
fix that
suggest
timing
that.
thing, whatever, make that timing work for you and for
So
us.
you're on a calendar year and the budget's on a fiscal year. They're never going to align.
And that's
perfectly.
true, exactly. And that's true for our entire agency, to be honest, is every employee's on a January 1 timeframe. And that's oftentimes when I when I do provide feedback, I sometimes get, well, I didn't get the budget, or we'll see what the budget brings. And so then it becomes
Can you just offer some language, or do we just make it consistent with fiscal versus annual?
that would be I think the cleanest approach is that we shift from a calendar year to a fiscal year timeframe. But Commissioner Stebbins, I realize I'm throwing a hand grenade into the middle of a performance management process, and I do so both mindful of that, but also this is our chance. So
But can I tell you, this is a good grenade. We need to be fixing things so that they actually function the right way. And if it isn't functioning, let's fix it.
Right.
So proposal is on number 1.
But wait, I want Bruce to sort of push back or not.
Well,
It's moving forward.
yeah, I mean,
Right.
it's the language under number 4. I think is blind to that fiscal year versus calendar year, at least the language as it reads now, approve the executive director goals inform commission budget and staff resource. Scenario as it exists today, and when you put a budget together and when a budget is submitted, still rolls in around the beginning of the year, even though we may not
Right.
get it. So I mean, there's some alignment. So I'm happy to catch the grenade you just threw, and I think it's a bigger conversation that we should have, but I think 4 is okay. I think the question we may want to come back and fix would be the language under 3.
Sure.
So I hear
And also
what
number
you're
1,
saying.
I thought it was number 1, that
I think it's 1 and 3.
It's 1 and
where it
3.
says calendar to say fiscal.
Right. But in terms of,
But then that makes your job easier too, Sean. So,
It does.
okay.
How do you feel? Are you okay with that, Commissioner Stebbins? Or
I hate to say I want to chew on it a little bit.
Could you
more,
just
but-
noodle on it? Because I think
Yeah.
I'd like you to sort of, and maybe even talking with Sean, because I think that it makes sense on a lot of different levels to make it work. And I think that it makes our job more relevant and his review more relevant, so.
And we've had this conversation before.
Exactly.
It's always been out of
But
whack.
because I haven't been involved and I'm like, so I couldn't even weigh
And
in.
it's the whole, as he pointed out, it's the whole performance management system for everybody else. And it would be thinking through what's a adjustment calendar to that? Like, where do we pivot? Where do we switch?
So I think we can fix that.
We can.
Okay, so you want to think about the implications of that, so we won't ask for agreement on that section. We'll come back to it. Okay. All right, we have 10 minutes. I don't know that we want to get into interactions. I think what I,
Guys, is there anything easy you think we can get into?
Here's-
10 minutes?
here's what I wanted to ask. Commissioner Concepcion, you said that you were going to propose that we delete the legislative outreach section. Could you speak a little to that so we can at least start that conversation?
Sure, so that's a policy that we already agreed to at a commission meeting, and it's something that technically speaking would have to be revised to make sure that they're aligned, but I feel like that's one of the examples of us really getting into the weeds and putting it into a charter. So that was you might want to change that approach, we might want to do some other things, but I think to incorporate that here, I personally, and I just think that's going a little bit too regular and detailed about outreach and legislative conduct.
Would you take all that language?
So just to remove the whole section.
I would just-
The proposal is remove the whole
But
section.
should I say, this is one place where people get mad. Who's doing this? This is where there's conflict.
But before we go there,
Hmm.
would you take that that
Do you know?
language and put it into SOP?
It's in a policy. Already.
That's okay, yeah, so I know we have it, okay, sorry, yes, I know that, but I was just asking about,
So just leave it to the policy then?
I guess maybe I'm
Okay.
missing something. Do you think that?
I'm just saying that I see this document as if we strip it, I'm not disagreeing, I'm just saying, if we strip this out, then looking at the I'm trying to remember when we did the policy. When did we do the?
you weren't here.
Okay, so I don't know the policy. So I would just like the ability to look at the policy. And I may be 110% in agreement with you. I just don't know that policy because I thought we were going to be working on it.
It's pretty much, I pretty
Yeah.
much cut and paste the policy.
Oh, all right,
Into
okay,
this.
okay.
They're just, I think, we added the budget to it. They're minor changes,
Okay.
but it is the policy.
All right.
But I think to your,
I'm open to anything.
go ahead, Bruce, then I'll go after you.
No, I hear what you're saying, right? We've adopted this as a policy. My only thought was, could we, just to help understand the role of commissioners and working with the executive director, take some higher level pieces out of this and fold it in the role of the commissioners?
That's what I was.
That makes sense.
What you saying? What you saying?
So take kind of the higher level pieces of the legislative and executive branch outreach and fold it either, I mean, there's a piece of it that already resides within the executive director, but something that goes into commission overall responsibilities.
I agree.
Okay.
That was sort of my line of thinking with including that role about participating in committees and hearings was
Yeah.
because,
That was the question I asked you before. Are you asking this from 13 to go into?
Oh,
and that's why I was like, no, I like that. I think we
That's why-
should.
that's why I
So
started
just
asking.
strike this whole section, just put like one sentence under.
Well, whatever we think are like the, you
Yeah.
want to make it more general and then the specifics are within the policy.
What I was asking you earlier was just because this language is very prescriptive, because we're still breaking the law at times and meeting with legislators and not going through Matt and all that stuff, or not letting Matt know, right? So
no.
breaking policy, breaking policy.
Breaking policy.
So, so that's why I was asking, like, if we get rid of it, some of this language is good for, either folks who don't know the policy or new.
That's what I mean by conflict. It's that
Yeah.
there's still,
Like if you don't know the policy.
I wonder. You might have already said this, but when this is rolled out, are we sort of adding like an addendum with everything that's being referenced?
I think there are so many SOPs that will need to be created. So I think that the first thing that happens is sitting down with the COO and saying what SOPs exist and which ones need to be written and which ones need to be changed.
So it's different from an SOP though, because this is a policy that was adopted and voted on by the commission.
Okay, so would you propose then if we add to the commissioner responsibilities some language from this, that we then have a footnote that refers to the policy?
What do you all think? I'm just throwing this out there.
I would just say a couple of things. One is 352. I also know in respect to our team that kind of put comments on this, some folks may not like this, but they did give us comments on this. So I'm curious to kind of go through these a little bit more now, knowing where we're at. And then Chair, you said that there's still conflict around this. I don't know.
I mean, if we didn't have conflict, we wouldn't have all
Got it,
this.
got it, got it. Okay. I'm just thinking more of a high level policy, like in terms of the policy that we already adopted should be very clear. So I think we should.
I would like to have the opportunity to look at what the current policy is and to see how it differs from what we have here. And I
Yeah.
don't think that I know that because I thought we were,
I can get that too.
yeah, that'd be great.
Do you know though what we're talking about though, Chair?
I maybe not. What do I know? What?
We're talking about the policy that the legislative policy that we all adopted in
That's
terms
what I'm
of.
saying is that I wasn't here when it was voted on. So my point is that I haven't read it because I thought we were going to be, we were going to incorporate it here. So I literally don't know what that policy says. So I'd like to read it before I agree to it. That's all.
It's pretty simple, but
Yeah, I just like to see it.
yeah.
So I think next steps are, we schedule another couple of meetings. And go through this.
I'll give like fair warning. That's sort of where my mind was today, is like getting rid of, there's this, I think there's a few other things in here that are really descriptive, like overly descriptive in my opinion. That was
In the charter, generally.
in the charter.
Would you mind sending me an email so I have a heads up on what you think might need to be, or that you would recommend cutting? Okay. All right, anything else before we break?
I don't have anything.
Okay. You have to adjourn the meeting, or you don't need to do that?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Stebbins,
Aye.
so moved.
Oh, so moved.
What do you say, aye?
Commissioner Camargo,
What do I say?
Second.
any questions, comments? Hearing none, I'll take call roll. Commissioner Camargo. Commissioner Concepcion.
Aye.
Commissioner Roy.
Aye.
Mr. Stebbins.
So moved.
Chair votes aye. Meeting is adjourned.
I think that's for the end of these.
Thank you.